Hello, everyone. This is Aldo Gandia for the Barroom Network's Draft on Tap Show. I heartily apologize for the 17, 18-minute delay. There was an audio problem on my end. I couldn't hear the guys. I couldn't hear the music. I couldn't hear anything. So I started to panic and things are falling all over the place and stuff. But finally figured out, the rebooting, I think, was the magic trick, although I can't really attest for that. But we are here, and just want to let you know that 8 days from now, the Bears will be on the clock. Super exciting times here at the Barroom, and we will be covering the first 3 rounds live. And on day 3, we're going to have kind of an open barroom where people can come on and share your thoughts. We'll have more on that in our next week's show. But first of all, let me introduce to you no one that I respect more when it comes to evaluating Danny Shimon. Danny, how are you, brother?
I'm doing good. For a man who's notorious for muting himself, you muted the entire world this evening. So, the good thing is we got it out of the way now, right? We're good and clear for next week. Next week's the draft. We can't have this kind of stuff going on next week. So you got it out of the way now. We're all good to go.
Yep. I promise it won't happen again. I never keep my promises, but I promise it won't happen again. All right. We have a very special guest. I'm so excited that he's here because he's going to co-host with us on Friday for rounds 2 and 3. And it's none other than my buddy, Jordan Silveira. Jordan, how are you, brother?
Well, Aldo, good evening. Danny, good to see you, and excited to talk DBs today and Chicago Bears draft prospects.
Yeah, well, and you've put together your big board. So before I flash it up, and what I did graphically is I took it round or position by position, I should say. And so, for instance, when you talk about the quarterbacks, you'll see this graphic. And so, as it's clearly outlined there, the first round guys are in blue, second rounders in red, green, third rounders, et cetera, et cetera. So, let me ask you first, Jordan, what was the thinking behind setting up your big board?
Absolutely. This is something that I work on consistently every year. I think that this year was a little more exhaustive as I tried to just go a little deeper with, I'd say, well over 300 prospects when you consider the offensive and defensive sides. And just thought it'd be nice to be able to share it with everybody, the processes. And obviously, certainly I could have gone deeper with reports on each one, but I think that this noggin still works up here, and I can talk a little bit about each prospect and certainly expound upon any questions anybody has. But just thought it'd be a good process to kind of share how I evaluate and present it to the public. And if there's questions, I can certainly talk. And I just like to talk chalk with anybody that's interested.
And, there's a lot of people in the chat who are saying, but wait a minute, Jordan isn't a Bears fan anymore. So do you want to formally detail, are you a fan of an NFL team? What led to your divorce with the Chicago Bears, if indeed it is a divorce? Why don't you give us the lowdown there?
Yeah, I think although a divorce would probably be an appropriate way to put it. I wouldn't say I'm a fan of any team. I think that, who am I to say? And look, everybody can fan how they want to fan, but I think fandom allows you to have biases and cloud your judgment. At the end of the day, I like good quality football, and I don't necessarily think the Chicago Bears have been putting out much of that since, roughly 85. Outside of the good year once every 10 years or so. And I just kind of made a personal pact to myself that I've just really grown tired watching the Chicago Bears waste the careers of young, talented kids. And, Justin Fields obviously has a lot of problems. And I was on this very network talking about how I was out on him after that Tampa Bay game this last year. But I also think that they did him zero favors, all things considered. And I think really what put the stamp on it for me is when they decided to retain Matt Eberflus, knowing that they'd be going down the path of resetting it as a rookie quarterback. That was kind of the final nail to me that it's the same old carousel. The ownership's still the same. It's just the same old ring around the rosy every single time. And that was enough for me to go, I'm out. I still root for the Bears. I still have an interest in watching how they perform. I wish nothing but the best for the Chicago Bears. But I wouldn't consider myself a fan the way that I think many people that watch Barroom are.
Yeah. Danny, you got a bone to pick with Jordan regarding what he just said?
I agree with him. I agree with him wholeheartedly. And it's the one rare time Jordan and I agree. Look at that. We do agree. But yeah, I mean, I agree in terms of in terms of the way you just kind of just laid out there for you in terms of the whole, Matt Eberflus retaining him and I mean, I think we all knew, right, that this regime was laying the foundation once they fired the Getsy and the offensive staff, and he brought in all these offensive coaches that they haven't had that before, and that they're laying the foundations to go ahead and bring in their quarterback, they being Ryan Poles and company. And if you're going to do that, Ryan Poles, you think Matt Eberflus is the coach that's going to go ahead and take this quarterback to the next level? And that's the thing I feel bad for. It's not that Caleb Williams is a bad guy or he's a bad quarterback, or I think he's got tremendous talent. He's my number one rated quarterback on the board, just like he was in Jordan's there as well. So, but it's the rinse and repeat. It's we got to bring him in. If Matt Eberflus and the Bears go 7-10 again this year, he's gone. Who new coaching staff comes in? Even worse than that, if they go 10-7, they make the playoffs. Caleb Williams wins Rookie of the Year. Shane Waldron is the head coaching candidate. He's gone probably, and now you're starting all over the new offense. It's just like, if you're going to do this, you're going to go on this path of bringing your quarterback in. You've done everything else. You brought in some weapons. Hopefully you've going to help sort of fortify the offensive line, give him a couple more weapons in the draft. Why not just bring him a head coach that's going to be with him, whether he succeeds or doesn't succeed, that's going to be able to kind of bring him to the next level and coach him up. So, because if you have success, then if that coach is still, that play caller isn't going anywhere. He's still going to be here with that quarterback. And they're going to go together. So, Matt Eberflus to me again, good guy. Players seem to like him. Is he a great defensive coordinator? I'm going to wait and pull off on that. 7 wins last year, 6 came against backup quarterbacks and sub 500 teams. So let's see what happens this year. But
coaches that are no longer employed, Daddy.
Yeah, exactly. And he's a guy that I just have no confidence in. So if you're going to do all this, just take the extra step and bring in an offensive mind to go ahead and usher in this quarterback. And you have everyone lock in step now.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. I don't think any fan should define for another fan of the NFL what their fandom should look like. You can be a fan of one team, 2 teams, no teams. But if you like football and you're just a fan of the NFL, and when I first met Jordan, he was honest with me about it. I root for the Bears. I've been following the Bears because of this or this, but he also told me I'm not married to the team, so everyone can choose how to root for the NFL. And I appreciate Jordan's viewpoint of what the Chicago Bears are doing, because he doesn't have a connection with the team that is bonded like I do, as a fan, because I've been watching them since '68. Saw Gale Sayers get injured and stuff. It's like a family thing. And Jordan has more of a, I don't want to say dispassionate, I don't think that's the right word, but more of a professional look, because he's interested in the NFL first and foremost. Is that fair to say, Jordan?
Very fair, Aldo. And I mean, also, I really think that you hit it right, the nail on the head, which is that we're just different eras. I was born in '92, and I wouldn't say I'm young, but I didn't get to see, Gale Sayers and Peyton at their prime. And the reality is, since I've been born, I think the Bears have had less than 5 significant seasons of success. Truly, I'm not even kidding. I mean, we're talking about, I'm 31 years old, and so in 30 years, I can count on one hand how many successful seasons the Bears have had. That's just something I'm not willing to subscribe to anymore. I'm good. I've had enough. I've had my share, and so I'd rather watch from the sidelines.
That's twice now he's flexed his age, Aldo. You notice that?
Yeah, us old guys. Me, the granddad, you, the dad.
And it's kind of similar. Like for me, when I'm out here, I'm doing my scouting reports and I'm doing my analysis. I'm doing it as an analyst. I've taken my fandom hat off, and I've told people multiple times, like, I'm going to just give you, my absolute football analysis, whether I want the team to win or don't want the team to win. Yeah, you know what? Like I've been, I think, a public record here as I was one of the big Justin, Fields supporters. But then when there's times when he, didn't process correctly or made the wrong decision, and we made, Aldo and I made film clips about, why is he looking at this receiver and not throwing the football? So I've tried to be as honest as I can. But I'm a fan of Justin Fields, but I'm also going to be impartial and be honest when my analyst cap is on, and that's what I do here in terms of scouting, in terms of breaking down, post game stuff and all that. It's all as an analyst, not as a fan. So I think that's something that we kind of bring here as well. We also have the shows that have just a fan, viewpoint and their passion and all that stuff. But for us here, I think it's just more of a analyst and just giving you, unfiltered truth, and whether, and you guys can take it and process it and all that stuff. So
Barlissimo has an interesting question for you guys. Would Flus have retained his job had Alan Williams not had a moment and resigned? Flus would have let him call the D into oblivion, in his opinion. What do you think, Danny? And then Jordan.
Yeah, it didn't look like he was doing anything in terms of taking away the play calling duties from Alan Williams. So yeah, if Alan Williams hadn't done whatever he did to lose his job, pretty much Flus probably could have been fired, and that very could be a possibility. Yeah, because he was just adamant behind Alan Williams and staunching his defense, and there was no signs in terms of maybe he had some talk here and there in terms of game planning or some ideas during the week, but there was nothing in terms of Flus taking over play calling. And I think that if that let's say this job that could have been the moment there where Williams leaves, Flus by default, because he had no one else on the staff, took over the play calling. Now he did bring in Eric Washington, so if it ever falters, and now there's a scenario where Flus doesn't want to call defense, Eric Washington has done it before, so I think he's got himself some backup there that can help him do that. But yeah, I think by default, that's one of the things we talked about right during the season in terms of you can't fire this guy during the season because you have nobody on the staff. A, has got head coaching experience that can step into that role, and B, who's going to call defense. So that, there's two things there that you're just going to go totally rudderless there. So I think they've covered themselves now with Thomas Brown, who's had multiple head coaching interviews, was interim coach with the Panthers when they fired Frank Reich last year. So he's got some coaching experience. Obviously, Eric Washington, we just talked about him having defensive coordinator calling duties as well. So, I'm not claiming there's going to be in season firing, but if it got off to a horrible start, they do have some options now.
Jordan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that Barlissimo brings up a good point, and I do believe that had everything stayed the course, it's likely that Matt Eberflus would not have been retained, because I don't think that without that late season surge post Montez Sweat acquisition from the defense, I don't think that you have much to hang your hat on with Matt Eberflus as your coach. I mean, the reality is even right now he's a 29% win percentage head coach, and I certainly think there's more nuance to it. And the reality is, as much as I don't agree with the decision to retain Matt Eberflus, I understand it in some respect. Had you brought in a new coach the past 2 years of draft picks on defense primarily, what happens to those players? Are they seen the same way with a new coach that's not Eberflus? So I understand the context there, but to Danny's point, I think that you're almost damned if you do and damned if you don't, depending on how the season goes with the quarterback. If he's fantastic, then your offensive staff leaves, and then you're starting over with a quarterback in year two with a new team or new offensive staff. If the quarterback's horrible, it's not likely that your head coach is around, and now you've got the same issue that happened when Matt Eberflus inherited Justin Fields. So it's it's a tough situation, but I think this is exactly what we're talking about. Bears football cannot just be relatively sensible and practical and pragmatic. So it's the Chicago Bears for you.
And one thing we left out is if they do have a winning record, not only does his staff might leave, but he might get a contract extension, which is even worse.
Yeah. We're off to a positive start.
Don't go there, Danny, please. All right, let's take a look at this big board again. I've fragmented the board into position groups, and we'll start with the quarterback position. Jordan, you've got Drake May, Caleb Williams, JJ McCarthy, and Jaden Daniels as your first round picks, and you've got JJ and Jaden in yellow lettering. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I'll kind of break this down. This would be applied to any other positions we go through, but just for clarification, then it's numerically ranked. So if you're seeing Drake May as the first name, that means that he is my quarterback one in this class. Anybody that has white text for their lettering or for their name, so for example, Drake May or Caleb Williams, those are what I would call blue chippers in the class, people that have numerous elite traits or skill sets. Anybody that has a yellow text, so in this case, J.J. McCarthy or Jaden Daniels or Joe Milton there in the 6th round, I think that they have a particular signature trait or calling card to their game that you would be able to hang your hat on it by drafting them as a prospect.
Okay. Danny, do you see anything on this list that you are adamantly opposed to?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, there's a couple things here. Well, Caleb Williams is my number one quarterback there, and Drake May is I've been up and down with Drake May, and what currently when my top 100 comes out sometime next week, I list them all 100 prospects. I don't do positional breakdowns like this, but if I do have to do positional breakdowns, it'd be Caleb Williams number 1, Jane Daniels 2, and Drake May 3. And I've been wrestling with Drake May possibly being 2 or 3. And, the 2023 tape for Drake May, I think we all, have discussed it ad nauseum here in terms of, there are some stuff that really bothers you. There's some stuff that really looks good. But I went back and I watched some 2022 tape, and where he had Josh Downs at receiver. He had a couple of offensive linemen that ended up going to the NFL, still there. And then you see why Drake May was neck and neck coming into the season as 101A with Caleb Williams. The size is impressive. It's 6'4", 6'5", 230 plus pounds. This guy can make all the throws. The athletic mobility he's got. He's not the scrambler that Jane Daniels is, or even to the extent that Caleb Williams is, but he's got the ability to kind of maneuver in the pocket, buy some time. He can run for 10 to 15 yards, get first down, extend drive. So it gives you that option as well. It's just that, the one thing that we have to keep in consideration. I think a lot of Bears fans do this, and I've heard it a lot, is that North Carolina helmet. Don't confuse that with Mitch Trubisky, right? Mitch Trubisky couldn't beat Marquise Williams to be the starting quarterback. He had to wait till Marquise Williams graduated before he got that starting job as last year. Drake May is a highly touted, highly recruited kid out of high school, committed to Alabama initially, but then because of the whole family ties to North Carolina, switches commit, went to North Carolina. This is a kid that was going to go play for Nick Saban in Alabama and SEC. So he's got the traits. I just think at 21 years old, that lack of playing experience is something that shows. And I think a lot of it with his footwork, with some of his decision making, and even some accuracy on the football field. And Jordan, I don't know if you've caught it, but I've kind of a little bit of a tell with him in terms of petting the ball, especially when he's trying to rip it into a tight window or kind of put a lot of effort into it. So I think there's little things here and there you can coach up and kind of get out. That's why I think if he goes to a team like, say, Minnesota, that's got Josh McCown, who coached them in high school, who has Sam Darnold, who will start for this first year, let Drake kind of sit back and not necessarily set out the whole year, but maybe set out 5-6 games, kind of get the feel and energy of the NFL season, and then you put him. But if you put him in right away, say if he goes to New England and they start on week 1, I think that's you're kind of setting up like that kid for failure, because A, I don't think he's ready to start week 1. B, if he goes to a team like New England, the cupboard is bare there. You have no receivers, no skill position players. The offensive line sucks. So I think that's where he can get in some trouble. So where he lands, the situation he lands in, I think by these top 3 quarterbacks, whether it's Caleb, whether it's Jane Daniels, or Drake May, I think by the end of 3, 4, 5 years, one of those 3 guys could come out as being the best quarterback in this draft. But going into the process right now, it's Caleb 1, Jaden Daniels 2, and for me, Drake May 3.
Yeah, Danny, I can certainly understand that. And although I don't mean to cut you off here, if I could add a little bit of context, I certainly think that evaluation is obviously going to differ from person to person. One of the reasons you're seeing Drake May kind of up there as QB1 on my list is there is an element of projection that has to go into this. And it's not to say that you can't project with Caleb Williams, but I think that we've seen Caleb Williams at arguably his best in a lot of ways. And that's not this year. That's obviously going back to last year. I don't think that we've seen Drake May and what he's capable of with the system that's static. I mean, this year, as you know, everybody talks about this year now, he's inconsistent. It's a brand new offense with Phil Longo. Watch Josh Downs leave. Watch Josh Azudu leave. Has seen various pieces go out the door. And so certainly it's not that he's a perfect prospect, but I think that when you project what he can be and the skill set, everything that you alluded to, the frame, the speed, the arm strength, the talent, everything, all the issues we're talking about are mechanical. And I'm not to say that those are just easy to sweep under the rug, but hopefully in an ideal world, you're hoping that he can get coached up in a way where at the end of the day, the things that I'm comparing him to, the other guys that are 6'4" and can run around, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, I see those guys make fantastic plays week to week, half to half, quarter to quarter. And it's too tantalizing for me to see Drake May and say that can't translate.
And then the one thing also, I'm sorry, Aldo, go ahead. You can jump in.
No, go ahead.
Well, the one thing also with Drake May that I absolutely love is that size. I mean, you can't teach 6'5", 230 something, with a big strong arm can make all NFL type throws. You watch Caleb Williams and he looks small, right? I know he's barely, he's a little over 6 feet, maybe a little bit 6'1" and something, but compared to Drake May, you can see that size difference, and I'm a guy who loves size. I love prototypical size, and Drake May has all that stuff for me. But it's just the wow throws, the ability to the quick release, what that Caleb Williams has, the ability to kind of obviously I've talked about the off platform stuff that he does, the quick release, again, the ability to get it downfield with accuracy is what really kind of puts him up top there. There are some concerns. I have a lot of concerns in terms of some of the in-structure stuff. I saw some of 2022 tape of Caleb Williams, and I watched him against Oregon State. And there's times where, he's missing receivers, throwing over from the pocket, not trying to do anything. But then you also see some of the things where pocket breaks down. He runs away, finds a guy down the football field. So, but for me, if it was a normal, like, if Caleb Williams wasn't in this class and he doesn't have these wild throws, Drake May is a guy that, just by that size, and that's what NFL teams want. So I can see why some teams may have Drake May number 1 overall, just like Jordan does.
All right. Any final thoughts there, Jordan?
Just real quick, I mean, really, Danny, and I want to for the chat as well. This isn't, and this you can take this throughout the whole board. Just because one person's above the other doesn't mean I love one and hate the other. As a matter of fact, oftentimes these guys are. This is one of the best things about this class. I found that so many evaluations, more than other classes I've done, there were prospects that were really neck and neck, and it's one single factor, and a lot of it's about preference. In this case, Danny, you're really hitting the nail on the head. I'm a sizist, if we're being frank. That really is the thing to me, is that at the end of the day, I want to bet my horse on a guy that's 6'4" over a guy that's 6'1". It is nothing wrong with 6'1". Caleb's well built for 6'1", but at the end of the day, what my preference is size over a guy that's 6'1".
So, Jordan, let me ask you this: if you were making the board, because there's 32 different boards out there for the 32 different NFL teams. So if you were making the board for the Chicago Bears, who would be your number 1 quarterback?
Yeah, I think it would have to be Drake May or J.J. McCarthy. And I know that strikes people like crazy when I say that. But at the end of the day, I think to me it's all about, again, when we're talking about traits and size. I mean, I'll start with J.J. McCarthy. I know that's blasphemous to some people. I like his velocity. I mean, that's kind of, you want to talk about a signature calling card or trait. I mean, we can take it 100 different ways. Is he a leader? Does he throw with great velocity? But I mean, if we're just like pegging one, sure, he needs to improve on touch and everything else. But when you're talking about cold, frigid weather, I like a guy that can drive the ball in tight windows, and that's J.J. McCarthy, one of his specialties. When you're talking about Drake May, this is a guy that's a creative thrower, but can also thread a needle and has a powerful arm. That's not to say that Caleb Williams doesn't, but at the end of the day, Caleb Williams, I think, has come from a little bit of a unique scenario in Oklahoma and USC, and isn't necessarily used to playing. And it's not just about frigid weather. It's about tough defenses in the NFC North and what he's expected. And I also think the personality, I would say I think I've become more impressed with Caleb Williams' personality as he's talked and interviewed throughout this offseason. But I still think people can talk about USC being a media market conglomerate. I don't think it even remotely comes close to the Chicago media market and the Chicago Bears quarterback, importance, if you will. And I think that's a little bit of a concern for me with Caleb Williams entering into the fold for the Chicago Bears.
For me, Jordan, and I know you've been on the J.J. McCarthy, bandwagon, if you will. You might be driving the bandwagon.
I feel like I have been.
But and I've said it before. I was prior to the college football season. I think I was on Before 55, and I told John and Aldo and Alyssa. I said, they asked me about the quarterback class, and I said, obviously Drake May, Caleb Williams, but I go, scouts have told me J.J. McCarthy is going in the first round. This is, again, beginning of the football season, right before they go on and win a national title and all that stuff. And I think Aldo and both Aldo and John, jaws dropped like J.J. McCarthy. I'm like, scouts love this guy. And again, when you're scouting and you're watching film, and I don't know if this is the same thing with you, Jordan, but it's like I try and grade the wall plays, right? I try and grade the flash plays. All right, so I see a flash play, mark it down. All right, the thing is, this flash play, how great is it? How good is it? And how consistent is it? How many flash plays do you see on this kid's tape throughout the game you're watching, and then the other game, and so on and so forth? The one thing with J.J. McCarthy is, I know why teams love him. He's smart. He's got that it factor in terms of intangibles, leader. He's a guy, in terms of his pocket presence. You can watch his tape. You kind of don't see that when you're watching him live, but when you break it down, you slow it down, you see his pocket, his movement in the pocket, the ability to kind of slide here and slide left, just kind of find that throwing lane and get that ball up. Solid arm strength, not the greatest arm strength. Accuracy can improve, obviously, but these guys are not. None of these guys are perfect. The one thing with me, and then why I have JJ lower than the other three, is because of the wow plays I talk about, the flash plays. You see him here, that throw against Ohio State in between three guys, tight window throw, that was a wow play. There are other throws that he's got on tape. That third down play against Alabama where he gets the first down in the playoff game, that's a wow play, right? Things like that. But just for me, there wasn't consistent wow plays throughout his tapes, and that's why, to me, I just don't see him on par as the other three guys in front of him.
Yeah, I certainly think, Danny, and Aldo, I'll be really quick here. I think the thing with McCarthy is that it takes, and this is why, and this is going to probably drive people crazy. If I had to hitch my bandwagon, if I was a GM and I had to hitch my team to one of these quarterbacks, it would be J.J. McCarthy, bar none. but that's also understanding that what he is today is not the final product. There is so much projection and mystery that comes with the evaluation of JJ McCarthy that I would never fault anybody, yourself, Danny, or otherwise, for going, that's just too much risk for me. And I'll take the guy where I can grade to the flashes and I've seen a greater sample size over the guy that takes, and to be quite frank, you have to watch a whole season. And honestly, at this point, like you said, I've been driving the bandwagon. I've watched pretty much JJ McCarthy's entire Michigan career. And as somebody who's watched it, you can't watch 3, 4, 5, even 6 games and get an honest evaluation of it. You need to go a season or longer. And I'm not saying this is a you problem, Danny, but the reality is, and I get it, we're all short on time. People aren't willing to invest that time. So this is how you get the, oh, he's Zach Wilson, or oh, he's a bust.
No,
or
he's not Zach Wilson.
You know, there are people that are not willing to grind the tape.
I think I've watched about 7 games. I think of his. If I'm not mistaken, 7 or 8 games. I kind of dabble back and forth between 2022 and 2023. And for me, I think if he goes to a team like Minnesota with a coach like Kevin O'Connell, I think that is a perfect scheme, perfect system for JJ McCarthy. I think that that wide zone, play action, Sean McVay, if you want to call that, that, I think that scheme, I think he's a guy that can comprehend that system. I think he can get on the field quicker. Obviously, you have Sam Darnold there; he can be there for a year or two. But let's all talk about putting him with Cliff Kingsbury at Washington, which it'll be a disaster from putting him in New England with nothing on that. Whoever goes to New England, I feel sorry for him, to be honest with you, because unless they're gonna commit to putting him on the bench, letting Jacoby Brissett play this first year while they recoup some assets. But I mean, I think if JJ goes to Minnesota, I think he's got a better shot at playing quicker and being more successful come next season. But if you go to Washington, if you go to New England, I think it's disaster for him.
Indeed.
All right, we'll move on to the running back position. This is again Jordan's big board. The running backs, he's got 2. He's got no one going in the first round. But he's got 2 in the second round. Why don't you take it away, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, Aldo, I think that at the end of the day, positional value matters, and I also just don't think that there's a Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley type running back in this class. Again, some of this is, understanding projection. I went with a guy that's, Braylon Allen. I like this type of back. I like these big brick, expletive word houses for running backs. And I think at the end of the day, Braylon Allen presents that. I think that if you look again at this last year film, with Luke Fickell, who's the offensive head coach there for Wisconsin this last year, I don't think that the offense fit him as well. I think he went to Wisconsin to run the ball and churn out 1,000-yard seasons, and I think that's what he did prior to 2023. Not a perfect game, needs to clean up a lot, but I love the size, 6'1", 235, 20 years old, will be 20 throughout his rookie year, and I think he has good vision for a back that size. That's not to say he's a perfect back. He's got some issues too, but if I'm betting on a back, it's all a lot of preference here. I like big backs. That's why you see, my first 3 guys are Audric Estime, Trey Benson, and Braylon Allen. I can certainly talk about these and expound upon them further, but that's why I have Braylon Allen at the top there.
So you like big backs and you cannot lie, right?
100%, Danny. And that's where, to be fair, I think that you see some of that where, Blake Corum, let me spread some love on Blake Corum, as you kind of heard me say earlier. Anybody that has that yellow text outline, and I know Notorious just asking somebody catch me up on why Blake Corum's yellow. Anybody that has that yellow text outline is what I would call a signature trait or calling card. He's actually the only guy in this class that I would say I could really feel like I could hang my hat on with the particular trait that he has. And this is one I'd argue is one of the best for running backs, which is Blake Corum. I think that he has his exceptional trait that you can count on anytime you hand him the ball is vision. His vision is exceptional running the ball. I would hope so after as many totes as he got to carry for that Jim Harbaugh Michigan offense. But that would explain the yellow text there. Down to, to your point, Danny, about me not loving smaller guys. That's, Bucky Irving in the 4th, Jalen Wright in the 4th, Marshawn Lloyd in the 4th, down to Ray Davis, Frank Gore, Will Shipley, these smaller backs.
I love those guys that you've targeted in the 4th round, Jordan. Those are quarterbacks I wouldn't mind seeing on the Bears. Sorry, Danny, go ahead.
No, I know you're a big Isaac Garendel fan.
Oh my gosh.
Like a speed galore. Aldo's been crying for a speed back for years now. So, that guy's gonna 4 picks. I don't think I think this is a class where, Jordan, I agree with you to a sense where, if you want an inside the tackle runner, you got those guys. If you want a wide zone guy that can hit the outside, cut it to the outside, you got those guys. If you want a pass catching throw out of the backfield, you got those guys. But there isn't the one guy that combines everything together, right? So looking at your top two guys with Braylon Allen and Trey Benson, for me, Trey Benson is a guy that I think has special traits, special qualities. And I talked about earlier with the quarterbacks is grading the flashes, and he's got a ton of flashes on his tape. And he's a guy that can run in between the tackles. He's a guy that can catch out of the backfield. He's got that burst that gets through the first and second level defense that I love seeing. Braylon Allen is a big beast. He's a in between a tackle guy that's going to pound it up in there. I don't know. I mean, my comp is Gus Edwards. I don't know if that jives with you, Jordan. There is a guy that can just kind of bruise it up in there, can get you up 10, 15 touchdowns, just goal line situation. But the guy that I think, obviously, Jonathan Brooks is a guy that a lot of scouts like, but he's coming off that torn ACL. He won't be ready. Blake Corum is a guy that heart and soul kind of guy. The size, though, does bother me. I just don't know if he can be a bell cow. Obviously, I don't think a couple of these guys could be bell cows, but I don't think Blake Corum. I think he's going to have to fall into a rotational kind of backfield there. But the guy that to look out for are Jalen Wright from Tennessee. I think he's got some big play potential. Marshawn Lloyd, the kid from USC, I think he's got some big play potential. And a guy that's in terms of like a pass catcher. I know you like your Isaac there, Aldo, but Dylan Lobby from New Hampshire is a guy that really, really caught my eye at the Senior Bowl. And I think he's going to be a guy that can come in here and play, like that, the guy that the Patriots always have, whether it's the whites or what's the number 39. I'm drawing a blank on his name, the white guy, number 39.
Danny Woodhead.
Danny Woodhead, thank you. Someone like that. Like he can probably return some kickoffs, be a pass catcher out of the backfield, but also show the ability and the burst to be able to top the rock for you in between the tackles as well down at the Senior Bowl. So, again, different kind of flavors, just what you kind of like. Well, we'll see what happens. But this is going to be interesting to see how many of these guys kind of fall through in a seventh, and don't get drafted, and maybe one of these guys can end up signed as a priority free agent by the Bears, because I think they do need some more young blood in that running back room.
All right, let's turn our attention to the wide receivers. The Bears are in need of wide receiver help, so let's spend some time on this topic. Jordan, some really, really intriguing names here in these first 2-3 rounds, four rounds as I see, fifth round. So take it away. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I don't mean to keep harping on, but just for anybody, the white outline on name, or what you would call blue chippers, elite, multiple elite traits on their profile. Anybody with that yellow text, again, a calling card trait, a signature trait, if you will. Clearly, I think at the end of the day, I know Greg Gabriel doesn't quite feel the same way, but Marvin Harrison Jr. to me is a complete receiver. It's not that every prospect, it doesn't matter what class, what year, what position, there's always areas to improve. But Marvin Harrison really takes the cake for me as the top receiver in this class, and particularly for the Bears, if there was an opportunity for them to find a way to get him, I just think that he's a perfect fit. The reason why he takes a place over an Odunze or a Neighbors is he is an ex-receiver. And the reality is that is the type of receiver that is hardest to, I don't want to say hit on, but get massive production from. And what I look for in an ex-receiver, and I know it's certainly a personal preference to everybody's different perspective, but when I think about a ex-receiver that can win, I think about Michael Playmaker Irvin, a guy that at any given down, I understood that whether he was, backside one-on-one, if I needed to find a way to get him the ball, Troy Aikman could always rely on Michael Irvin. I think that's similar to what Marvin Harrison provides you. Obviously, Neighbors is a firecracker. He finds a way to exploit any defense, and I think that he also got a lot of favorable looks on slot fades against middle of the field closed looks. But at the same time, he can only face what he's going up against. Odunze is just another really well-rounded player who wins at the catch point exceptionally well. I can certainly go on further, but I think where you may see a little bit of a difference is I know Keon Coleman's fallen out of favor for a lot of individuals. He's my wide receiver 4, and I stand by that. Really a big fan of Keon Coleman. I can certainly talk about anybody else you'd like me to, Aldo.
Yeah, I have a question from the chat, and I didn't star it. Bearsky Film says, can you please tell us more on your thoughts on Xavier Legette, Brendan Rice, and Taj Washington, and Danny, jump in after Jordan there.
Yeah, I'll try to be quick here and just kind of hit on him. Obviously, Xavier Legette I hold in high regard. He's my first receiver in the second round. I think that, you have to parse out a little bit the 1 year of production compared to, the previous 4 years at South Carolina where it didn't quite result in massive production, but I think there's some reasons for that. But at the end of the day, when you look at his film this year, Danny's talking about grading to the flashes, seeing the frame, the archetype, the speed, the ball skills, the ability to take it to the house on numerous catches, the ability to win at the catch point. I think he's a intriguing prospect that obviously tested out of the roof, and I think that's why I have him at the top of my second. Brendan Rice, this is another player that I really am a big fan of. He's the first receiver I have in that third round. He's a developmental X, if you will. I think right now I'd like to see him start out as a power slot before getting the opportunity to work outside at an X receiver. I think he's got some room to grow, but I really like to comp him kind of to a Michael Pittman Jr. of, again, a developmental version of that guy. But certainly, if the Bears are taking Caleb Williams, getting a Brendan Rice would also be able to fit a guy that's of a bigger mold that can play that X receiver, where Keenan Allen and DJ Moore aren't quite that. Taj Washington, I think, honestly stole the show at USC. As much as I like Brendan Rice, Taj Washington was the guy that Caleb counted on most when he needed to put up 1,000 yards receiving this year and really needed to find a way to get somebody to win. Taj Washington was that guy. I have him in the 6th round. I think that it's just a matter of the size, not the ability to necessarily beat press, but he's a really smart cerebral football player, and I think that he can win, and that would be a great opportunity if the Bears were to trade back and pick up some day 3 picks. Taj Washington would certainly be on the board for me.
Yeah, this board, though, if you put it up there, Aldo, I think this is the one area, I think one group that you and I are going to agree upon a lot there, Jordan. I agree with you. Marvin Harrison Jr. is by far, hands down, the number 1 receiver in this class. Anybody that comes and says Malik Neighbors, I'm like, all right, guys, let's go put on the tape. The last 2 years, Marvin Harrison Jr. in the last 2 years has scored 14 touchdowns each, respectively, right? Malik Neighbors had 14 touchdowns this past year. He had 7 combined in his first 2 seasons. And with Malik Neighbors, he's got that acceleration. He's got the ability to create separation. I think that's what a lot of scouts are seeing, is his ability to create separation. But, for me, at least, at that catch point, he's, when there's a corner on top of his back, when someone's being physical at the catch point, he's not someone that comes down with those balls a lot of the times. Now, can he create separation? Can he run by guys? Sure. He gives you some of that information, but similar to what Jordan just said, Malik Neighbors, to me, if you're scouting for the Bears, he's similar to a DJ Moore. He's a guy who can play some of that Z spot, right? You need a true X receiver here, and I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is that guy with the ability to get off of press coverage, whether it's his ability, strength, his arms, his reach, and Roman Dunze in the same way. Guys that can get off that press coverage at the line of scrimmage and make contested catches down the football field with big catch radius. So that's why Harrison Jr. is number 1. Dunze is a very close number 2. For me, Roman Dunze, I don't know if you see the same thing. I see a lot of, and I'm drawing on a blank on his name, the former Packard receiver now at the Raiders. Help me out, guys.
Devontae Adams.
Thank you so much. I have a lot going on today. So much going on in my head right now. But yeah, Devontae Adams, I see a lot of that with Roman Dunze. His ability to be physical down in the football field in terms of battling defensive backs for those 50-50 balls. So I agree with you there. Top 3 guys in that order. Keon Coleman is a guy that's very underrated. That 4.61 at the combine is not something that you watch on tape. He doesn't play at a 4.61. Right now, is he a finished product? No, but he gives you that size, the physicality, the big catch radius. Another guy that could be very dominant on the outside. Brian Thomas Jr., another guy that to me gives you some of that size, the length, and the speed, 4.3 speed on the outside. I think he's a guy that could, developing is an intriguing. A.D. Mitchell, really, really like him in terms of his physicality, his ability to create separation down the football field as well. So, the only thing here I'm gonna caution you guys, and I want to go through all these guys, but Jalen Polk from Washington is a dog, and that's a DAWG dog, and he's a guy that I think ran a 4.5 at the combine. But I mean, you put on his tape, and I watched a lot of Washington tape scouting and scouting the quarterback, and this kid makes catches like nobody's business, and he's got some of that in him. So I think in a couple years from now, everyone's gonna be like, how did Jalen Polk drop? And I think he's building some steam now where you hear his name bottom half of that first round, top of the second round. So Jalen Polk is a guy to keep an eye on. Jermaine Burton is a guy that a lot of people are sleeping on as well. Former Georgia Bulldog, transferred to Alabama, 4-year starter. The guy's got tremendous get off at the line of scrimmage. He's a guy that's going to be a big play potential down the football field as well. Javon Baker is a guy I like from UCF, another former Alabama recruit, transferred to UCF. Brendan Rice, you touched on him. I am in love with Brendan Rice. I think he's a big physical guy, and I think a lot of scouts are down on him because he doesn't create the separation we were just talking about with Malik Neighbors, but he's more of a guy that does some of those contested catches, and he's got the strong hands, and he's a guy that's got some of that, track background, some track speed, able to get down the football field, make big plays. You guys watch our draft coverage this year, you're going to see receivers. I'm going to be saying this a lot. I like him a lot. I like him a lot. And Taj Washington, love the kid. Absolutely love the kid. He actually looked like, if you watch him and watch when you're scouting Caleb, he's more of Caleb's go-to guy, and they have a closer bond. And you could tell by the football field. And I watched him at the East-West Shrine practices. This guy was eyeing up over bigger, taller defensive backs, making catches. He's fearless over the middle. Small package like you talked about, but man, he's got a big heart and he plays big. And I think there's a ton of receivers. As I said, we haven't touched one of my favorite guys is Ricky Pearsall from Florida. This guy is going to be a sensational slot receiver. I can keep going on and on and on about this receiving draft. Jacob Cowing from Arizona is a guy I like in terms of a slot receiver. Jalen Coker, a friend of the program. Ryan Florney, a friend of the program as well. These are guys that potential developmental guys later on in the draft. And this is a draft that is loaded with receiver guys. I haven't even gotten to Bub Means yet.
Yeah, I want to ask Jordan about Roman Wilson because I was watching first draft with Mel Kiper and Field Yates, and Field Yates said that this was J.J. McCarthy's favorite receiver, and when he needed a first down or he needed a big play, he would look for Roman Wilson. Tell us what your thoughts are on the Michigan receiver.
Yeah, it's hard not to love him. And when you know a guy like me, Aldo, that really appreciates J.J. McCarthy's game, obviously I'm going to pick up on those weapons that he's throwing to, and that is Roman Wilson. To me, he's the best senior wide receiver in this class. Based on production, obviously, when we talk about potential, and obviously you have guys like Xavier Legette, who's ranked a little bit higher, but when you're talking about what you're getting kind of as a known quantity, I think Roman Wilson is the best senior receiver in this class, but has a specified role. He needs to be a Z/slot receiver. I cannot have him on the line. I mean, if we get to corners and everything else of that sort, if a corner can put his hands on him, he gets rerouted immediately. But outside of that, I know he ran slow at the combine, but I'm telling you, he runs 4.3, outran all of those Big Ten DBs, has sure hands. The reason you're seeing him ahead of guys like Ladd McConkey, and I know people love Ladd McConkey, is that I think Roman Wilson, had he been outside of a Jim Harbaugh offense, you'd be talking about him as much as a Ladd McConkey or these other places where they throw the ball and get after it. And it's a situation where I like Roman Wilson because despite being a slot guy, I mean, similar to Danny's talking about Taj Washington playing with heart, Roman Wilson plays strong for his size. I mean, this is a guy everybody wants to talk about, Terrion Arnold and Kool-Aid McKinstry, and Roman Wilson was going against those DBs, making plays against Alabama in that Rose Bowl. And this extends to Max Melton. This extends to, all of the different Big Ten DBs, Kalen King, etc. And so to me, Roman Wilson, if you're looking for a slot, you can accept the fact that he needs to be off the line, but you want speed, refinement, a heart, a smart player, willing to block, gets after it. Roman Wilson is that guy for me.
And don't sleep on Cornelius Johnson from Michigan as well.
Yeah, no, I as you see, I have him in the 5th, right ahead of Taj Washington. Again, some of that might
go higher in that. He lit it up at the East-West Shrine game as well.
I was just going to ask you about Cornelius because the subject in my mind was there's a good chance the Bears might miss out on those blue chip, even red chip, if I'm using your color code, first and second round wide receivers. And so they might have to draft in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round a receiver. So if that's the case, I want a receiver who is an excellent downfield blocker, who can replace Equanimous St. Brown, but also catch the ball better than Equanimous St. Brown. So, Jordan, I'll start with you first. Who fits that bill? I would think Cornelius Johnson.
Yeah, Cornelius Johnson is a great option because of the offense he came from. They expected him to block. He was willing to get after it and do it. I think about other guys. I think Brennan Rice is a willing blocker, will certainly do it. Jalen Polk is another one of those that when he blocked, he blocked his ass off, and I really appreciated that about his game. Those are 3 guys that really make a lot of sense to me outside of, that round 1 or 2. 3 guys that I think, would fit. Jordan Whittington, I know I have him as a priority UDFA, but he's an interesting prospect that was asked to block quite a bit in that Texas offense. But again, if you're sticking me to 3, give me Jalen Polk, give me Cornelius Johnson, and who else did I say? Brendan Rice.
Excellent. Danny, you got a thought on that topic?
No, I love all those guys. Even Xavier Leggett, he's a guy that'll give you the best blocking receiver in my opinion is Roman Dunze. But I mean, if you go on, later on in this draft, I mean, even AD Mitchell, he gives you some blocking there as well. But yeah, I mean, Ricky Pearsall will put his nose in there and block too. So there are a ton of, like I said, a ton of guys in this receiver class that I absolutely love, and I think anyone, if they're first, second, third, fourth, whatever round picks, I think you can pick guys. And I think the Bears do need to at least draft, in my opinion, two receivers. Whether it's the ninth overall pick, or if you trade down, they need to bring two receivers. Remember, I know Keenan Allen was added, but he's 31, going to be 32. Missed 11 games the last 2 years. Pending free agent, you bring in a young guy and have him kind of learn behind Keenan Allen, learn behind DJ Moore, and if you decide to let Keenan Allen go next year, you have a guy to step in this spot. So, keep an eye on this receiver class. I think the Bears should come out of this class or this draft with two of these guys.
Very good. All right, let's move to the tight end position. This again is Danny's board, and you got Brock Bowers. That's no surprise in the first round. And then Jatavian Sanders is your only second rounder. I know that Danny and I are big fans of Ben Sinnott. I think that's how it's pronounced. But your evaluation of these tight ends?
Yeah, I mean, clearly it's a one-man class at the top of the class and a blue chipper at that. Brock Bowers is an exceptional talent, and I think that the challenges with tight ends are being able to find a specified role and scheme them up. But Brock Bowers is a guy that's a willing blocker, really is an exceptional receiver, isn't afraid to go across the middle, shows incredible dexterity with his hands. Jatavian Sanders is a guy that I think played third fiddle a lot in that Texas offense, and so I don't think that you always got to see his ceiling. But and it's a very different style. You're talking much more about a move tight end, a guy that can really stretch a vertical stretch receiver, if you will. And so I think that's really what he provides. Ben Sinnott, I'm a real big fan of as well. I just think that he's got a little bit of a different build and unique skill set insofar as he's much more of an H-back, which means that you can line him up. I don't want to call him a use check. I think that's quite a stretch, but that similar style, that similar role that he can fill. Moving on to the fourth round, I certainly think that Jaheim Bell, Theo Johnson, Kate Stover are all quality players. They all come from different backgrounds and different archetypes if you're looking for different guys. I think Kate Stover kind of blends that Y and that U complementarily together. Theo Johnson is a unique player insofar that he's kind of a physical freak, but I think that he's still developmental in a lot of ways, and that Penn State offense didn't do a lot to inspire me in his game, but I think that he's worth a flyer in the fourth. And Jaheim Bell I know he's a little bit of a divisive prospect to many, but I like F tight ends. I like players that can move. And I think that, it takes a very creative offensive mind, but these are guys that if you can find a way to weaponize them appropriately, they're mismatches for safeties and linebackers in ways that, guys like Theo Johnson and Kate Stover just might not be.
Before I turn it over to Danny, I'd like to ask you, Jordan, one of the things that I've had in mind is a blocking tight end, because we've got both of these tight ends now, Everett and Cole Kmet, who can easily play that move tight end position. Kmet has proven that he is one of those tight ends in the NFL that can play in line and can play the pass catching role. Everett is a pass catching demon. So if the Bears were to add a tight end in this upcoming draft, I would think a guy like A.J. Barner, again out of Michigan, has the blocking chops to be that inline tight end. Do you agree with that? And who else would you add to my list of an inline tight end?
Yeah, I mean, here the golden name, and it's again because it's a limited skill set, is Tip Ryman. Tip Ryman in the seventh is that blocking tight end. I think Tanner McLaughlin gets after it quite a bit. The hands are a little messy at the time, but I think that he presents a unique skill set. Moving on, A.J. Barner is probably the first guy that I would feel comfortable. He's got a big body. He's willing to block the game coming from that Michigan offense. So I think that he's an interesting prospect.
Danny, your thoughts on this group?
Yeah, if you're looking for a blocking tight end, I agree with Jordan there. A.J. Barner would be there. Tip Ryman with the other guy. Brevin Spanford a little bit there. But a guy that's really picking up a lot of steam now prior to the draft is Eric Hall. Obviously, the former Michigan tight end went to Iowa. He's been battling some injuries throughout his career, so I think that's the only reason why he might drop here. But he's a guy that a lot of teams are intrigued by later on in day three. So, but yeah, in terms of blocking, Barner, Ryman, and maybe span forward would be the guys you're looking for.
Very good. Apologize for the echo. I think it's corrected now. Let's move on to our next position group, and that's the offensive tackle group. I wonder if Danny's going to say the same thing. There's a great group. I like that guy. I like that guy. This tackle group has been heralded by a lot of evaluators. Jordan, take it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think that this is honestly one of my favorite groups to evaluate. And there's a lot of good positions, receiver, but tackle is really a special one here. I think that you'll see a little bit of deviation at the top. J.C. Latham is a guy that I get giddy about watching. Like if I'm looking for some comfort tape, if you will, to watch, I just pop in some J.C. Latham, and I love what I watch and see when I watch him play. His pass pro is – I would almost call it textbook in the way that he just clamps down on people and just doesn't lose, and then certainly creates enough displacement in the run game. His biggest issue is not necessarily seeing stunts or games come his way. I think that there's some missed assignments, mental errors that can be cleaned up with coaching. But as far as a physical tool set, I'd argue that there's none better in this class. Joe Ald is exceptional in his own right. He's a technician, but I don't necessarily think, as much as we all get oohed and awed by 6'9" height, I don't necessarily think that's a great thing at tackle. He has an anchor, but I think that he concedes far too much ground in that anchor before he really hunkers down. But outside of that, hand placement is exceptional and exudes good leverage overall, considering that height, and his ability to mirror is pretty special. Talise Fuaga is an interesting one. I certainly think he can be a guard as well, but I loved his tape. I think that he's a total person mover in the run game and showed advanced hand technique at right tackle, using single hand strikes, making sure to flash different moves like a fork move or Hamilton, etc. Olu Fashanu, I know, is a big name. I love all these guys, so I don't think it's necessarily a down thing, but his run game is a mess to me. I don't see a lot of block sustain, and so that I like my linemen to be able to run the ball and block the run, and so I have a little bit of concern there. And I know he may have been playing hurt this past year at Penn State, but his pass pro is exceptional. I think that he has a great toolbox, and if we're talking potential, certainly I could see Olu Fashanu being one of the top guys in this class. I could continue to ramble on. I can certainly talk about any others, but I don't want to take up all the air here, and I want to give some to Danny.
Yeah, before Danny jumps in, there's a couple of questions here. Does hand size for Fashanu, I don't know, is that a huge deal? And then the other question, I wonder if 6'8" is too tall for a tackle.
Yeah, I don't think it's too tall, and I think that Joe Alt plays with it well, and I think his ability to mirror at that height is incredible as well. I just think, and like I said, his anchor is not bad. I just don't like a tackle that gives up a lot of space before he hunkers down. And Olu has a little bit of that problem too with his anchor. And again, this is the difference, and it's just about preference. But I like tackles that are just shored up. You don't move J.C. Latham. He puts his hands on you and the rep's over, and that's exciting to me. Talise Fuaga, his issues are just getting beat by speed to the edge, which is why there's concern about putting him into guard. But he's another guy that he clamps on you. It's effectively done. With respect to the hand size for Fashanu, I don't think it's a huge deal, but I do think that those 8-inch hands play a role with respect to some of that grip strength and his ability to sustain blocks. I also just think that some of it's technique, some of it is, whether he was hurt. I don't know Olu Fashanu, but I didn't see the same vigor or intensity to get after people in the run game in the way that he would really shore up in pass pro.
Excellent. Danny, any thoughts on this group?
I love this group, and the only thing I would do is the top three guys. Like if the receivers aren't there, if you take one of these top three guys, I'm game with number 9. That's how much I love these three guys. J.C. Latham came in at number 9. Jordan, I'm sorry, number 3 overall behind Alt and Fuaga, because I believe he's a guy that while I think he can play left tackle, I think he's predominantly a right tackle, and then Fuaga, I think, is just a great fit in terms of the scheme, the athletic ability, his ability to get off of the snap and get into that second level, his quickness, this explosive quickness off of that, and he's got some nasty to him as well. So I think I'd go Alt, Fuaga, and Latham, and then I had Latham 3, and Aldo's asking me why he's rated so high. I might be the only person having him this high. Look at Jordan's got him number 1 overall, but all 3 of these guys I think are day 1 starters, and I think if any of these 3 guys are available number 9 and none of the receivers are there, I think, and if you can't trade down, I would be okay with taking any one of these three tackles. And in terms of Graham Barton is going to be, he played left tackle at Duke. He's going to be kicked inside. He's probably one of the top interior offensive linemen. I think he's going to be probably the first center taken. I think he's going to be playing center. Jordan Morgan I like a lot. 32-inch arms. You guys know how I am with my tackles and arm length. So he's a guy that could kick inside to guard. And there's another guy here that I think I saw where I believe he's also going to be kicked inside. I forget. I think Fatano is a guy that they're talking about, maybe giving him a shot at tackle, but might be kicking inside at guard as well. So, but this is a pretty good. Patrick Paul is a guy from Houston that I put in my top 10. You're hearing some early second round buzz on Patrick Paul now, the big kid from Houston. So, talented group. This and the receiver group probably and the interior offensive line group are probably one of the more deeper classes groups in the entire draft class.
Jordan Bellissimo wants to know why Frank Crum at UDFA.
Yeah, I think Frank Crum is a guy that became a name. And I don't want to say I'm not at all trying to besmirch Bellissimo here.
Say it.
I think he's a combine name, and so people saw him at the combine, put up some numbers. They like
not that good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he played at a small program, didn't necessarily show great anchor in the film that I watched. He's an athletic guy, and there's tools there. But at the end of the day, I mean, Aldo, if you want to bring that up for just a bit, Tyler Grable is a guy that I think has more tools. And do I have him here? Yes, I have him in the 7th. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, he's a guy that can be considered for guard too. But Tyler Grable, if we're talking about tools, Barely Simone, I don't know how much you've watched of Tyler Grable. If you're looking for Frank Crum and you're like, oh, well, the athleticism and the tools are great. If I'm signing up for tools, give me Ethan Driscoll or Tyler Grable well before I'm signing up for Frank Crum.
Very good. All right, we are moving on to the interior of the offensive line. We'll start with the guards. Take it away, Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, to me, and you see a little bit of color changes here. I just want to kind of clarify that, like, hey, well, why do you have a blue guy a red guy over a blue guy? Again, some of this takes projection, understanding that at the end of the day, I've not seen Talisa Fuaga play guard, and Fatanu has been an exceptional left tackle, so he hasn't necessarily had to play a ton of guard. So to sit there and project them to be automatic studs there is not something I was willing to do. So Cooper Beebe is my top guard in this class. I think that he has exceptional versatility. I mean, we were talking about Graham Barton. The reason he was there as a first-round talent at left tackle is because I've watched him at left tackle take on Jared Verse. I've watched him take on different players at left tackle and acquit himself just well. And I've seen Cooper Beebe do the same thing. I mean, one of my favorite tapes is watching Cooper Beebe stunt and completely just stop Darius Robinson, who's a physical freak of the greatest nature. Cooper Beebe had to play emergency tackle despite having 31-inch arms and being built like a teenage mutant ninja turtle. But and that's kind of a joke of a comp, but that's what he looks like in his pads. And he's better in a gap scheme, but he can certainly move. And I think he has, I wouldn't say five-tool player where he can truly play tackle, but he's shown the ability to do it in college. And again, we're looking at guard here. So I think he could play center, but at guard, he's a technical player. I don't want to, for Bears fans, I know that Cody Whitehair is the natural comparison coming from Kansas State, but you really don't miss when you're talking about Kansas State offensive linemen, and Cooper Beebe's shown to be able to do it despite a lack of physical length. He's shown the technical skill and the glass eater attitude to put defensive tackles on their butt.
Andy, your thoughts?
Yeah, the only thing with Cooper Beebe is like you said, Jordan, I think he's more of a gap power scheme guy than he is a zone scheme guy. So I think that's why he wasn't high on my list for this particular scheme. But yeah, in terms of versatility, in terms of a guy that can be a leader on the offensive line, I think he'll make some team very happy. Obviously, Jackson Powers Johnson is a guy that they talked about at center, maybe guard. But a couple of guys I'm not gonna go through all these, but a couple of guys just to keep an eye on that I really like that I think could be some late round steals or potential gems. Mason McCormick from South Dakota State at guard is a guy that I think is a glass eater. He's a guy that's going to be. Remember how John Runyon was with the Eagles, the right tackle? Yeah, I think he's a John Runyon-ish kind of player where he's going to get under people's nerves and under their skin. He's going to drop 15-yard penalties on defensive linemen, but he is nasty, and he's a guy that I saw at the East-West Shrine game, pancaking guys in practice, and that just pissed guys off. Hunter Norzad, the center from Penn State, is a guy to keep an eye on. I know they made some moves, the Bears did, in terms of hopefully fulfilling that center position, but I think neither one of those moves is a long-term move. If you're looking for a long-term possible solution at center, Hunter Norzad from Penn State is an option, and as is Tanner Bortolini from Wisconsin. So These are a couple of names to keep an eye on, later on in day 3 on the draft. But again, deep class. The tackle and the receiver class are deep, and it's a good thing for the Bears because they need help at all 3 positions.
All right, we know the Bears have acquired 2 free agent centers, but they might still grab one in this draft. Jordan, take us through your list.
Yeah, Danny hit it earlier. Graham Barton is projected to be a center at the next level. I certainly think just put him at interior offensive line, guard, or center. I'd feel comfortable with him. And like I said, Graham Barton, the comp I have for him is Joe Tooney. He's a guy that I think certainly could play tackle at a decent level, but he's going to be maximized inside a guard or center, and he is my top-rated center here. Zach Frazier, again, he's getting that yellow text because I think his ability to play with leverage and body control is a unique skill. It's obviously, I'm not calling him Creed Humphrey, but it reminds me a lot of Creed Humphrey in the way that he can torque defenders and get them on the ground using leverage. And then I know it's a little confusing here, like why is your blue chipper Jackson Powers Johnson third? Because at the end of the day, I think he has the ability with his skill set, with his tools, with some of what he's shown to have blue chip traits, multiple elite traits. But right now, I think Jackson Powers Johnson is a much more incomplete player than a lot of people want to talk about. And I understand he's alluring because you see some highlight clips and you watch the Senior Bowl reps and things of that sort. But at the end of the day, I don't think that the tape necessarily showed a complete player in the way that a lot of people want to talk about Jackson Powers Johnson.
Danny, your thoughts on this center group?
Yeah, I'm not going to harp on these, but Zach Frazier, excellent center prospect, perfect for this wide zone scheme out of West Virginia. Former wrestler, has got a wrestling background. I think he's ideal fit at center here. I talked already about Bortolini. I think he should be higher up on this list here. But yeah, I mean, we can just move on from here.
Very good. All right, next 2 positions, defensive ends and defensive tackles. Actually, I got offensive linebackers. Let's do defensive ends and defensive tackles. We'll start with DEs. Jordan, take it away.
Yeah, to me, I mean, defensive ends, and I know this is a little bit of a challenging one, Aldo, because the way I broke it up is outside linebackers, odd front, rush ends, if you will, versus down, even front, 4-3 defensive ends. But to me, Jared Verse is the whole package. And I know for the Bears that have a glaring hole at edge, Jared Verse is the guy that I think fits this Eberflus scheme the most. I hear a lot of people talk about Chop Robinson's ability to get off the ball, and I'm certainly not taking that away from him. But I think if you watch Jared Verse, he gets off the ball plenty fast too and comes with mean and bad intentions on every single rep. High effort player, kind of a hurricane or a tornado when he's bringing it to an offensive tackle, a guy that you better pack a lunch and a hard hat for if you're going to be dealing with him. And I don't think it's talked about enough, but Jared Verse actually has a diverse set of moves in his tool bag, if you will, and from a double swipe to a turning speed to power, a long arm, multiple moves in his bag. And I think that he is the most refined rusher. But for this 4-3 Chicago Bears defensive front, I think he's my top D end here.
Very good. Danny, any thoughts here?
Yeah, no qualms with the top three. If I had to, for me, it's Latu number one, Verse two, and then Dallas Turner three. For this team, for this defense or this coaching staff, I think they have it Turner and then Verse and then Latu just because of the length and some of the athleticism. But yeah, I mean Verse is like Jordan said, he's a very physical. Kind of a mini Montez Sweater, if you will, on the opposite side, a guy that can get after the quarterback with some first step quickness. Doesn't have the bend that you look for in traditional outside, edge guys, but does convert speed to power and bullies offensive tackles back into the quarterback's lap, and does give you that quick first step, and also he'll play the run as well. So Dallas Turner is more that athletic guy. He's got the long arms, got the length, got the first step quickness, but his game isn't totally matured yet. So and then Latu for me is the best pass rusher in this draft in terms of technique. His hand usage is way advanced, more than the last 5 or 7 drafts that I've seen guys come out. The only thing not common him is obviously the medical concern. The length isn't what this defensive staff usually likes in terms of their edge guys, and the run defense isn't great. I think the other two guys are especially Verse is better there. Darius Robinson is a guy that's really intrigues me in terms of a guy that could sneak into the bottom of the first round. He's a guy that gives you some of that scheme versatility. I think he could play some end, but I think I like him more, kick him inside, add about 10 pounds to 15 pounds of muscle to him, and make him your 3 technique. So he's a guy that really does intrigue me. But yeah, this is a group here that I think the Bears obviously have a big need here. And at number 9, if they trade down, into the middle of that first round, they could be picking from one of these top 3 guys here on Jordan's list.
Very good. Let's go inside. Eberflus has said, I don't care where the pass rush is coming from, inside or out. So let's take a look at the defensive tackles.
Yeah, to me, Aldo, I know the love for Byron Murphy. Obviously, you see that I have a first-round grade on him, but I have real concerns about his frame, and if it's maxed out, I don't necessarily know how much growth is left there. And I know he's an exceptional talent with great skill, but to me, Johnny Newton is by far, like without a doubt, the top defensive tackle in this class. And I understand that the injury maybe cooled off some of the interest or the film watching on him, or he just hasn't been able to test until I think today is when he tested, maybe yesterday. But Johnny Newton, similar to Danny talking about the hand usage, the refinement, and to me, what I call it is it's sequencing. It's not every, you can get a lot of pass rushers that have multiple tools in their bag. Like I'll give you an example, Jared Verse. I just referenced some of the moves he has. He has a multitude of them, but it's really about how you're sequencing those moves from one to the next in order to string together a package to win on a rep for success. And I think Johnny Newton shows that, and he's got experience moving from 3 tech to 1 to 5 tech. He's moved up and down that line and really was the motor of that Illinois defense, not just this year, but obviously when they were a fantastic unit in 22 as well.
Yeah, for me, it's Byron Murphy is one. I think he's the guy that is a true 3 technique in the sense of the word that we kind of grew up, watching the what I call the Lovie Smith, the Rod Marinelli kind of interior defensive lineman. He doesn't have the size and the length that what Eberflus and staff looks to want. But I think, for me, it's Murphy 1, Newton would be 2. T'Vondre Sweat is not even on my top 10 for this because he doesn't fit the scheme at all. So I don't think that's a guy that you can even list for this team, for this scheme. Obviously, Robinson, we talked about his versatility. Braden Frisk is a guy for me, is just another guy just like Chrome. He's a combine guy. He's a guy that is a 5th-year player, was at Western Michigan, didn't do much, went to Florida State, was surrounded by NFL talent, had 6 sacks this past year, 9 tackles for loss, 4.5 tackles for loss, and 3 of those sacks came in the last game against Louisville. So the majority of the season, he did nothing. I put on his tape. He showed the motor, you show his quick feet, but there's no production there. Plus, he's got short arms. So thank you for Braden Fisk. I can move him out. Michael Hall is a guy, junior. I would bump up to the 2nd round there. Mason Smith is a guy we've talked about in terms of his size, his dimensions. This is the type of guy that Eberflus likes. He's coming off the ACL injury 2 years ago. Last year wasn't the greatest, but he did show some life towards the end of that season with LSU. Obviously, Jenkins and Orohoro we talked about last week. And Dwayne Carter is a personal favorite of mine. I think he's a guy that could sneak into the 2nd round as well. Doesn't have big stats, but that guy's motor, that guy's ability to kind of penetrate and be a disruptor in the middle of the defense is something that I do like a lot. So there's some guys here you can talk about. Justin Ibobe is a guy that I like from Alabama. A guy that had dealt with some injuries, a former 5-star recruit. This past year had 7 sacks. He's played some end, plays some 5 technique for Alabama, who plays that 3-4 front. So he's an intriguing guy that you can probably get in later round. So, but yeah, I mean, in terms of the top 2 guys, it's Murphy 1 and Newton 2 for me.
Yeah. Real quick, Aldo, just so I can retort to Danny. Just for clarification, Danny, this is, I have to be, I'm evaluating for any team looking at any different prospects. So that's why you're seeing guys like T'Vondre Sweat here. I agree. There's no real need for him in this Chicago Bears scheme, but also for what it's worth. And it's not just because of the DUI recently. He's a guy that if I was GM, I wouldn't draft him. I'd let somebody else take that challenge on. And it's the DWI is just the cherry on top. This is a guy that admitted to potentially wanting to quit football a couple years ago, and he's a mama's boy, and there's no problem with that. But mom had to kind of talk him into, no, you can do it and keep pushing. And when you're talking about football character, I want players, I want volunteers, not victims on the football field. And the reality is, he's looked at football as potentially something he doesn't want to do. And then you add in the weight concerns, the DWI. He's a player that and the reason he's up there as high as he is, top player in the 2nd round, is because his tape is phenomenal, what he can do at that size. And it's not just run stuffing. He's got batted balls. He's got a pass rush, plan with him. But at the end of the day, I'd rather be wrong missing him than take a chance and waste a pick on a guy like that.
Good stuff. Let's go outside to these edge players, outside linebackers. Jordan, take it away.
Yeah, this is to me where you're seeing the difference, because at the end of the day, I think Dallas Turner probably should be the first edge off the board, but but I think that he is maximized playing in that jack linebacker role in a 3-4, which is why you're seeing him at the top of my board here for these outside linebackers. Jared Verse played plenty of stand-up and a 2-point as well, and that's why he's still there. But to me, Dallas Turner, and I know this is high praise, and I know that Danny may not be as high on him, and I'm not saying he will become this guy, but his game reminds me a hell of a lot of Khalil Mack when he was coming out of Buffalo, and this guy that isn't quite refined enough. He has all the tools. He could certainly play middle linebacker the way that he moves. He's got everything that you want out of an edge rusher. But right now, it's not refined enough, and so you're taking a bit of a swing. And I know that this is 2020 hindsight, but I think that if a lot of people went back and saw Khalil Mack in that pick, there was a bit of consternation about whether or not the guy from Buffalo was worth taking that high based on the skill set and the not so developed package of skills that he needed to develop when he went to the Oakland Raiders. And so that's why I have Dallas Turner there. I think a lot of these guys, Chop Robinson, Latu, I think fit better in a 3-4. That's where Chris Braswell and Braylon Trice, who were much lower in that second round, or a little higher here in this case. And then I know somebody asked about Jonah Ellis. I'm a big Jonah Ellis fan. Where's the Utah kid? And this is where he is. I don't think he can play in a 4-3 front. I love Austin Booker. He's another guy that I want no business playing in an even front. So there's a lot more. I would argue there's a lot more interesting players and prospects in this side of the drafts. And no shortage of understanding why, although the reality is more teams play in an odd fronted 3-4 defense. And so you have kids and prospects growing up where that is the du jour to go play edge as opposed to putting your hand in the dirt and being a 4-3 end.
Makes sense. I know Danny's going to debate on maybe a couple of those thoughts. Go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, in terms of outside linebackers, I mean, I don't see Verse as an outside linebacker at the next level, but I mean, I could see where Jordan's point is at in terms of him setting up from 2-point stands. For me, the couple of guys I just want to highlight here, and I know they probably are better made to be an outside linebacker, Jordan, and that's Austin Booker and Idisa Isaac. But I wouldn't give up on them being defensive ends, and they're not going to be traditional hand in the ground, 4-down defensive ends. But these are guys that are going to be, guys that can come in and develop or become a situational pass rusher, give you some of that boost, help opposite of Montez Sweat. That's why I've kind of earmarked these two guys possibly being that third round range for the Bears. And I think you have them here going in the third round too. So either Isaac or Booker, guys are again not perfect fits in terms of defensive ends, but again guys that can come in and contribute possibly as situational pass rushers. So. There's guys here that you can bring in and do stuff like that. Mo Camara is a guy that I'm really, really high on in terms of, again, not a perfect defensive end, but a guy that gives you motor, gives you an ability to get after the quarterback, gives you some pass rushing moves. Brennan Jackson is an intriguing kid from Washington State. You put the tape on, the guy's wearing number 80. I'm like, well, was this guy a former tight end? Why is he wearing number 80? But he's a guy that gives you some of that, that quickness. Again, not a perfect fit, but a guy that could put his hand in the ground and be a 4-3 defensive end as he gets bigger, gets stronger, but it gives you some of that quickness off the edge and some of that first step quickness and be able to get after the quarterback. So intriguing names here. But yeah, this is definitely an area of need, and hopefully the Bears come out with one of these, these players, out of this draft.
Good stuff, guys. Let's move on to the linebacker position, and there are no first rounders. This probably is the weakest group of linebackers I've seen in some time. But the surprise for me is that Jeremiah Trotter, you got him down in the third round. Take it away, Jordan.
Yeah, Jeremiah Trotter is actually one of my favorite players in this group, in this class. I love his tape. That's why he has that yellow text on his name. I think that he has an innate feel for the game and sees plays developed better than pretty much any linebacker in this class, but the size isn't quite where you want it. The athletics testing isn't quite where you want it. I think that he can get outran to the edge. And that's why he's not necessarily playing that. He plays Mike, but I love Trotter. I just don't see him fitting today's, I don't want to say, it's not like he's going to be phased out, Aldo, but I don't necessarily see him fitting the du jour of what today's linebackers are asked to do, and that's where you see guys like Junior Colson. I love Junior Colson. I think that he's got a tremendous upside. But when you're talking about Mike McDonald and all these, Jesse Minner and all these defenses that are kind of chasing back to those Rob Ryan, Rex Ryan Roots, Junior Colson, he's got like that David Harris feel from the Jets. So I think that he's going to be fitting a lot of what, defenses are shifting to. And then Edgerrin Cooper, and this is really, I think, important. And I wasn't going to go down to this guy's a Sam, this guy's a Leo, this guy's a Will, this guy's a Jack. I just kind of threw them all as linebackers. But I think it's really important to kind of identify that Edgerrin Cooper is a Will linebacker. So, if we're talking all these guys have to play Mike, you wouldn't see the list shake out this way. But Edgerrin Cooper is my top guy. If you let him play Will and just roam around and cause havoc, I think that there's nobody better in this class at doing it. And that is even considering another Will like Peyton Wilson playing in this, in this draft and his amazing year at NC State. But that's a little bit about the linebackers. I'm certainly willing to expand upon any others that people would like to.
Danny, you want to share some thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree here. Edgerrin Cooper is, to me, he's a dude. I mean, you can line him up as a middle linebacker, as a Will, like Jordan just said. You can even line him up as an edge guy on the outside and have him go after the quarterback. I mean, that's the kind of guy. This guy's sideline to sideline, athletic ability, speed. He had 17 tackles for loss, 8 sacks last year for Texas A&M. Just a player you can line up everywhere on the defensive front, and he can make plays. Junior Colson, just a strong, solid linebacker, a guy that a lot of teams are loving in terms of his interview process. His character is through the roof. The only thing is I think Peyton Wilson, if it wasn't for the injuries and the knee problems, I think Peyton Wilson is a guy that could be, bumped up here above Jeremiah Trotter. I think he's a guy that could have some first-round value. But again, he's dealt with a lot of injuries. But he was productive last year. 17 and a half tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks. Another guy that's athletic, ran a 4.40 or maybe even a 4.340 at the combine, super fast. But yeah, I mean, this is a group that's got some really intriguing talent there. But obviously, the Bears invested heavily in free agency last 2 off seasons ago with their linebacker group. So I don't think this is an area they're going to be investing in, unfortunately.
Very good. All right, we're moving on to cornerbacks. I have a message for the Italian Chicago Bull in the chat. If you don't agree with the information, why don't you go find another show that you agree with, because your negativity is a turnoff. Moving on to the cornerback position, Mr. Jordan Silveira, please take it away.
Yeah, this is a tough group because I love all these guys and everything that they provide in different ways. But and I definitely am ready to be burned by Nate Wiggins not working out, but I just can't get away from the allure of his talent. Obviously, Quinyon Mitchell's a freak player. To me, he reminds me, and I know that these are not hot names and they're from yesteryear, but he reminds me of Drayton Florence in the body, but the mindset of Chris McAllister. I know those are throwback names for people, but if you went back and watched those players, you kind of see the Quinyon Mitchell. Not a ton of ball production in the sense of getting his hands on interceptions at the FCS level, but at the end of the day was getting tons of PBUs, showed up on the biggest stages in the offseason. I try my best to make sure the offseason, Senior Bowl, Combine aren't what makes the grade here. It's all really based on film as the foundation. But at the end of the day, watching him go up against guys I respect like Roman Wilson, watching how he performed, the time he put up at the body, at the size, participating in events where others were, opting out. I think that it's clear he should be the top corner in this class. Nate Wiggins is one of my favorites. You get that yellow text there because at the end of the day, there's just not a lot of corners that are 6'1.5", 6'2" that move at high 4.2 speed. And again, I think he ran, and he said as much. I think he ran poorly at the combine because he pulled, I believe, a hamstring. I think he's a 4.2 guy certainly, and I think it's honestly more mid 4.2s. The thing about him, and this is what really endeared me to him last year when scouting Nate Wiggins, is I really love Josh Downs. Josh Downs was my top receiver last year, and he's a slot player, super shifty. I watched a 6'2", 6'1.5" Nate Wiggins man up Josh Downs in the slot, pace for pace, step for step, consistently, and not necessarily having to press and reroute him, just being able to mirror him with his feet. And so he's got sweet feet, he's fast, he's competitive, and finds a way. He only has 3 interceptions in college, but 2 of them went for touchdowns. Intercepted Drake May, my quarterback, won twice, as a matter of fact. So I think he finds a way to the ball. He's competitive, and I think that the upside there is really why he's my cornerback too. And then Terrion Arnold, who everybody loves. This is just flavors, preferences. Do you like chocolate or vanilla ice cream? Terrion Arnold's fantastic. Seems like a fantastic football character. Obviously, I think he really rose to prominence above Kool-Aid McKinstry, who you see as that cornerback 5 in this list here. Really physical, had some safety background, played corner. If you want a cornerback that's cerebral, that's willing to come up and fit the run, not necessarily the freak tester, but knows and plays with enough instinct to not have to rely on that, that's where Terrion Arnold fits at cornerback 3. And certainly I can talk about anybody else, but that's just a little bit of the flavor at the top.
Very good. Danny, what you thinking?
Well, I got my top 5 corners and my top 5 safeties we're going to go over later on, but just to kind of a couple things I would touch on. Quayon Mitchell, for me, I agree. Jordan is my top corner. I think he's a guy that when I first put on his Toledo tip, I'm like, oh, this guy's an off man coverage, off coverage zone corner. But then, as the process went along, he went to the Senior Bowl and looked like he was a man on a mission to kind of prove me and a bunch of other people probably seeing the same thing and saying the same thing, that, hey, I'm just not just an off corner. I can bump, I can mirror off the line of scrimmage. I mean, he literally shut down any receiver that went up against him in the Senior Bowl week, and then obviously then catapulted that at the combine. Ran a 4.33 40 at tremendous test numbers. So I think he's just, and the ball production, and I'll get into more of that later on, but the ball production is tremendous with him. For me, Nate Wiggins is a guy ran a 4.28 40, 6'1", 173 concerns me. That's a guy that really is really light, and I think that guy with that body frame, is going to have a trouble staying healthy at the next level. Athletic, he's a guy that plays hard. There's a couple of some rundowns he has. One against North Carolina, I can remember that he just ran about 50, 60 yards and chased down the ball carrier. So, but he's a guy at 173. Doesn't really like to come up and be that physical corner and run defense. So I think for me, he didn't make my top 5 because of that frame, because of that concerns I have about his frame. And then, we can get to some other guys here later on, but the one guy, there's a couple of guys here that kind of dropped down here, and we can discuss it later when I get into my my top 5.
Very good. Let's move on to the nickel back position. Jordan, you got the very short guy out of Michigan at the top of the list.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, and this is a little bit of projection, but when you watch Mike Sainristil and how he plays and what the football character, what people talk about with Mike Sainristil, you see the ball production this year, and understanding that he's only played corner for 2 years, I couldn't turn him away. And he's a little bit of an older prospect, but he reminds me of Mike Hilton, which is one of my favorite corners in the game. So to me, he rises up as a guy that I even think he could play a little bit of safety. It's not necessarily where I think he'd be best, but he's a versatile tool, a Swiss Army knife, and I think at nickel he'd be right at home. And he's a feisty guy, willing to come up and fit the run. Plays again when you're talking about projecting some of these players. That Michigan defense and it's not just Jesse Minter, it's Mike McDonald, it's Anthony Weaver, it's quite a few others that are trying to chase after this again, where it's rooted from is Rob Ryan, Rex Ryan principles, trying to chase some of that defensive design and architecture. And I think when you're talking about these Michigan players, it's hard to deny that they have what the NFL is looking for.
Danny.
Yeah, for me, again, that frame, that size, terrific player in college, but that frame, that size, he's gonna have to prove it to me at the next level that he's gonna hold up there. So that's a concern there. Javon Bowler is a guy a lot of people have at safety, which I another one. Size matters to me, right? Safety size matters to me, and when I go through my list, you'll see that there. But Javon Bowler, 5'10", 195, I believe came in, quick. But I think Jordan has him listed here correctly in terms of as a slot. I think he's going to be a nickel safety or a nickel corner. I think that's probably where it's going. But a lot of people have him listed as a safety, which to me is a little absurd. But that's my opinion.
All right, we will move on then to the safety position. Cooper DeJean at the top of the list. I love this guy.
Yeah, Aldo, to me, when you say you love him, I may fight you for that one, because if there was a player, and I know it's not going to happen anymore because of Kevin Byard's signing, but if there was a player I wanted the Bears to walk away with more than any other prospect in this class, it was Cooper DeJean. And for what he provides as a Swiss Army knife, and can certainly, you saw me list him at corner in the first round, you saw me list him at nickel, you see me list him here as my top safety. The reason he's not as high on corner and nickel is because I just don't trust his ability to stay in phase, in a hip pocket, playing man coverage, in a condensed formation, in the slot, out wide. There's real concerns about the looseness, the fluidity in his hips, change of direction. But I really love the athletic freak that Cooper DeJean is, and seeing him with the ability to drive down on the football, having the play unfold in front of him where he can diagnose and drive and use that athleticism to create havoc is where I think he fits best, and so that's why he is my top safety and the only safety I have in the first round with blue again, and even topping that with blue chip traits to stack with it. And so certainly that's the top safety. I can certainly wax poetically about these others, but that's why you have him there.
Danny, what are you thinking?
Yeah, Cooper DeJean, I went back and forth just like Jordan did in terms of like safety, corner. I finally settled in on corner because I think he wants to play corner. I think he wants to be proven that he can't play corner before he moves to safety, but gives you that versatility. It gives you a guy that's got the explosive, athletic ability. As a corner, if he doesn't doesn't pan out there, kick him inside the safety. But also gives you that special teams aspect. They'll be able to return punts and be special as a returner. So he gives you all three phases basically. In terms of he's even play some offense. I think that's how he broke his leg. He was practicing versus Northwestern during the week at offense, and that's how he ended up breaking his leg and missing the majority of the end of the season. So, so that's a guy we can just kind of debate back and forth. We talked about Javon Bullitt already. Jaden Hicks, I just don't see it, guys. I know he's highly rated on a lot of boards. I've talked to some other people in the NFL that they're like, I'm missing it on him. I might be, but I don't see it with Jaden Hicks. The guy I absolutely love, and I see Jordan has him here, was it third round, is Cam Kitchens. I think this guy has some special ability. I'll get into him when I get into my safeties later on.
Great job, Jordan Silveira. Outstanding work with your big board there. Do you want to stick around as Danny takes us through his top 10 DBs?
Yeah, I'd love to. If you guys will have me, I'd love talking. As I said at the top, I love talking shock, and I'm excited to see what Danny thinks of these DBs.
All right, so what Danny has done, he's picked top 10 DBs, and we'll start with the top 5 cornerbacks. Danny, take us through your list.
Okay. Oh, so you're going safeties. You got safeties first, or are you going to?
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant cornerbacks, so there they are.
All right. So I've talked about earlier. My top corner is Quinyon Mitchell. We talked about it earlier as we were going through Jordan's list here. He's a guy that really, when I'm watching him play at Toledo, his first time, I'm like, this guy plays a lot of off coverage, way back off the receiver, gives a lot of space. So my biggest question was him going into Senior Bowl week was, can this guy play some? You saw him playing some man up front, but it wasn't a lot of it, right? A lot of press coverage. So you see him go in Senior Bowl and dominates the week, and then just kind of propels it from there. And then you go into his background, 3-year starter, Toledo's school leader, an all-time school leader in terms of passes broken up, 46, led the MAC in 2022 and with 2 pick sixes. He's a guy that leaves school with 45 career pass defense and 6 interceptions. Okay, so his size at 6 feet, 195, ran a 4.33 40 at the combine. With a 38-inch vertical and a 10.2 broad jump. The positives for me, solid size. We just talked about that, right? Quick feet, loose hips, and lower body explosiveness. Feet, size, and athletic ability to mirror off the line of scrimmage and stay in phase with a receiver downfield. Good off-man coverage skills, trained eyes to be able to peek into the backfield and time his transition to the quarterback's motion. Lightning quick to plant, drive, and transition downhill. Has makeup speed to recover if he takes a false step or is able to chase crossers going across the middle of the football field. Feisty and competitive on his run fits, triggers quickly and will chop down bigger backs. Attacks the line, will look to hit with explosive power. Terrific ball production, touched on that earlier. 6 interceptions, 45 career passes defense in his careers at Toledo. Had a superb week down in Mobile. Showed off his cover skills and basically dominated wide receivers in practice. I talked about earlier. This is a guy that really no one was able to catch anything off of him down in Mobile. Off his college tape, talked about earlier, looked like a cover 2 corner, but down at the Senior Bowl proved to me he could be scheme diverse. The guy can play some press cover cornerback, or you can play some off-man cover, or whatever you need him to do. Some of the things that I think he needs to work on, and some of the negatives, is struggles to get off of stock blocks. Can be overwhelmed by size. Will open up his hips a little bit too soon. There's times he's biting on some head movement, but the receiver opens up those hips and gets turned around in coverage, and can get a bit touchy-feely in terms of a tad bit grabby, I should say, downfield and coverage. So he's got to clean that up a little bit. But again, these are all things that you can coach up and work on. But to me, he's at least for me, he's hands down the top corner in this class. So the second guy, I guess I'll just move on here, is Terry Arnold, and you heard Jordan touch on him earlier. He's a guy that obviously from Alabama, 5-star high school recruit, came there as a safety, also played basketball in high school, 2-year starter, led the SEC with 5 interceptions this past year, a 2-time All-American. And the one thing with him is you put on his tape and very fluid, quick with good transitional quickness. You can plant, transition quickly to take away anything underneath. Loose hips and solid lower body explosiveness, plays on balance with clean feet, and has what they call little man movement skills. Can open up his hips and mirror off the snap and run with the receiver downfield and stay in phase. Natural ball skills, 25 passes defense, 6 interceptions in just 2 seasons at Alabama. Can high point the ball and has soft hands, go up and make a play on the catch. Willing open field tackler, which is very key for the scheme. Especially if you play some off-man stuff, you got to be able to come down and support the run, and he's very willing to do that. Identifies and sees routes, concepts forming, and can adjust accordingly. And for me, he's best suited to play on the outside, predominantly probably in a zone scheme. So that's why he's number 2 for me here on this list here. Some of the downfalls or some of the negatives you want to call it: small hands and short arms, lacks physical strength and length to press and reroute at the line of scrimmage, needs to add bulk there. Does not appear to have the lateral agility and size to line up in the slot, so he might just be relegated to an outside corner. And then my third guy here is Cooper DeJean. We touched on him here earlier. I was going back and forth. Is he a safety? Is he a corner? But I really think the kid really wants to come out and prove that he cannot play corner before he transitions inside to safety. Multi-sport star in high school. He lettered in football, baseball, basketball, and track. State champion in the long jump and also the 100 meters. Led the NCAA and the Big Ten with 3 pick sixes, and also is a consensus All-American this past year. The thing I like about him is outstanding size, speed ratio, and overall just athletic ability. Fluid movement skills, makes flipping his hips and reacting to the ball look easy. Very good transition quickness and recovery speed. Superb feet and agility to be able to pop out of his breaks and close in on the ball explosively quick. Natural interceptor with very good hand-eye coordination, leaping ability, and overall ball skills. 7 interceptions, and we mentioned 3 pick sixes through his career. And as a returner, we talked about it earlier, shows very good vision and that traffic burst to be able to accelerate through a crease. Some of the negatives, at least for me, not as aggressive or physical in the run support as I would have expected for someone that big with that size, especially someone that we could probably see as a safety, down the line. Can do a better job of shedding blockers. Needs to turn and locate the ball downfield while in coverage. That nothing burns my bridges more than defensive back who's in phase, downfield, in position, but just doesn't turn around and look for the football. A couple times we saw Cooper DeJean do that on his film. So, but he's number 3 for me here as on my overall corners there. My next guy is Ennis Roshra from Missouri, and this is the guy. I went back and forth. Take a look at him. Size does bother me a little bit, right? If I'm going to be fair here, I criticized Wiggins for being slight. This guy's slight too, but he's 5'11", 183, 32-inch arms. So he's got a little bit, longer arms there. 3-year starter. Started 10 games as a freshman. Some of the concerns I have, we'll get into it later on, but 4'5", 140, a 1.54 10-yard split, and a 10-foot broad jump. We talked about some of that lower body explosiveness. This is the guy that, for me, shows good size and arm length and plays faster than his times. He's a guy that, for me, his instincts allow him to play faster than those times. It shows anticipation, shows route recognition. Zone awareness with good eyes and ball reactions. Has 24 pass defense in his career. He's a willing and competitive in run support. Plays bigger than his size, and this is why I differentiated between him and Wiggins, because I think he plays bigger and he's a guy that shows that he's competitive in terms of at least coming down and there's times he whiffs on the tackle, but at least he's competitive. He's feisty. He's a guy that can get a little bit bigger, a little stronger, and then in the next level, he's going to be able to wrap up those tackles and bring those guys down. Brings a swagger to the defensive backfield. I love the way he plays with that attitude, and has some special teams coverage experience as a gunner as well. So he could help you there if he's developing, for his first year or so. Some of the negatives. Thin and lanky frame, will need to get stronger. And some of the things I want to point out here, there are a couple of some major injuries. In 2021, suffered a season-ending injury in the 4th game of the season, and last year missed the last 4 games with a groin injury. So can he hold up? That's something that with these thin, size corners, like, can he hold up week in and week out, 17-game grueling schedule, and possibly hopefully playoffs with that type of frame. So man coverage limitations, I saw on film with him, has a choppy pedal and some tightness in transition, gives up separation at the catch point. Ball production, only one interception was subpar for me, in my opinion, and has had, like I said, injury concerns that they need to go ahead and take a look about, plug into that is medical, and make sure he's a guy, again, has some injuries that, you're going to have to make sure, can stand up and withhold an entire NFL season. So the last guy is TJ Tampa. And I think the name kind of fits, right? The Tampa 2, the zone cover scheme, and he's a guy that from Iowa State. So John Santucci, I got you 2 Iowa boys. I got you Cooper DeJean at number 3, and I got you TJ Tampa here at Iowa State. That's for you, Tuch. So Tampa is a 2-time all-county selection in basketball, actually in high school. Chose Iowa State over schools like Georgia, Maryland, Wake Forest. Came to Iowa State as a receiver initially, and then was flipped over to defensive back. 2-year starter, AP All-American in 2023, and a first-team All-Big 12 this past season. The thing I like about him is good size and length, right? He's tailor-made, no pun intended, for the Tampa 2 scheme. 6'1", 189 is his size, 32 1/8 arm length. This is a guy that went a 6'9", cone, solid frame, well put together. Might even have some room to add some more muscle there, get a little bigger. Fine zone instincts and anticipation. Sees routes unfolding and competes for the ball. 19 passes defense over 2-year starting there at the Iowa State. Is physical and competitive at the catch point. Does not allow any cheap receptions. He's a guy that will try and contest everything he can. Solid tackler. Will come down and support the run and provide some physicality. Some of the things that are concerning, below average foot speed. Can struggle in man coverage. Rises in his pedal and can be late to transition out of breaks. Challenge to keep stride with vertical receivers downfield. Marginal recovery quickness, and not a natural hands catcher, right? So that kind of explain why he was flipped from receiver to defensive back. But those are some of the things that for me, at least, TJ Tampa, I'm concerned about.
I like TJ Tampa. The guy was in high school, he was a wide receiver, and so he's got some pretty good hands. Jordan, what do you think about that list of top
He was
five?
a receiver. He switched to defensive back because he probably has poor hands.
Probably, yeah, that's true. Jordan, what are your thoughts on his top five cornerbacks?
Yeah, it's hard to Aldo to argue with Danny's too much. I mean, obviously, I understand the concern, and I'd actually argue I share the concern about Wiggins with Danny that the weight is really, really concerning. But to me, it's the only really glaring omission, and I'm just a big fan of his tape. And like I acknowledged earlier, I'm ready to be burned if it doesn't work out with Nate Wiggins. I understand the caution going into it. But outside of that, I don't have an issue with DeJean at cornerback, Danny. Like I said, it's just more of a preference. Where do you see him fitting? And it's about maximizing a player. And I think that we're kind of seeing that here where you have him as your third corner, because at the end of the day, I don't necessarily think that that's his best position. He has some deficiencies there. Outside of that, obviously, we share similarities on Quinyon Mitchell. I think it's just a flavor thing with Terrion Arnold. I like Terrion Arnold. I also think that he was a benefactor of watching teams go away from a very talented corner in Kool-Aid McKinstry, and that's not taking anything away from him. He certainly played up to his skill set, and I think the character – I don't know the kid, but the character looks like it's fantastic with Arnold. So I think that you're talking about a Saban DB. It's hard to not love those guys. Outside of that, Rakestraw is the only one that I really have a huge issue with. I like him. He's a jerk. He plays gritty. That's my type of guy. But when you talk about the injury concern, you talk about the lack of ball production. It's not just interceptions. Didn't get his hands on a lot of PBUs either. So I think that you're talking about, not the fastest guy, has a little bit of sticky hips, not going to necessarily flip. So you're talking about a guy that you're hoping can just be a jerk and win on press, which it's not a problem. I still think he's a great player, but I think there's some deficiencies there where, a guy like your number 5 guy, TJ Tampa, there's some deficiencies there as well, because as you alluded to, he's a bigger guy. So yes, it's going to take a while for him to spool up and get moving. The change of direction is going to be a little bit lackluster, but you talk about a guy like him, he's bigger, has equal athleticism, has better ball production. And I just think, when you were talking about, I guess the real difference between him and Rakestraw is a guy that's going to excel putting his hands on you, kind of mugging you up, where I think Tampa needs to improve in that area. But with that body, with the frame, with the younger age, I certainly think he can do that. And I think that, Tampa obviously already has a extensive background working in off man and zone. And I think that he's shown an ability to trail well and found a way to really disrupt. And he's also willing to lay the boom on you in a way that not that Rakestraw won't. But again, when you're talking about that tall, lanky, lean frame, you're not going to get that as much from a Rakestraw the way that you'd get it from TJ Tampa. So love TJ Tampa.
Just to defend Rakestraw real quick, he's got 24 pass defense in his career, and he's got 3 forced fumbles as well. And he has one interception. That is something that I pointed out. That's something I wanted him to kind of be better at. But again, I saw him more as an off man kind of cover corner. And again, I love my DBs that have attitude. Just look at Gardner Johnson, what he does everywhere he goes. He brings some of that swagger, and I think he brings you some of that as well. The size, the frame is a little bit thin, but I think again he's a guy that shows a feisty competitiveness to be able to come down and be a contributor in terms of run defense. You can always get him bigger, you can always have some size, but for me with Wiggins, more natural, talented athlete. But the ball production there was also missing with Wiggins. But again, that size really bothers me, and my concern, and I to a slight with Rakestraw as well is will they be able to be available for 17 weeks this season, right? We got to get them bigger, got to get them stronger. So, but but the Tampa 2 or the off man zone kind of scheme, I think really fit nicely with him with Rakestraw as opposed to Wiggins.
Yeah, and with Wiggins, the only thing I'd say and he's not the only one. I mean, Amarius Mims is this way. There's quite a few of them, and I know you're like, what was Amarius Mims the tackle have to do with this? But I call them the Ferrari athletes. They're the ones, and that's kind of my term for them. They, at peak efficiency, a Ferrari, there's no better motor, but there's a lot of maintenance and requirements, and you need to be really careful about how often you're redlining that motor. And so, to me, that's why I said I found Wiggins' tape to be tantalizing, but I totally understand when he flames out. I'm ready to take all of that crow on a plate serve for me because I understand there's enough concern there with his body. Will he even be able to maximize the frame, put some bulk on? And then on top of that, he's you're running and it's a fast 40, I understand, but you're blowing out a hamstring running a 40. And, it's a question of what happens when we're putting 45 reps on you to cover and, burst up to speed when you're chasing Tyreek Hill across the field. I mean, there's challenges there.
Lindy's draft guide says that there was an average of 37 corners drafted over the last 3 drafts. And Kay is asking the question, is this a below average cornerback class? And according to Lindy's, they're actually grading this class at an A+. What say you guys?
I'll go quickly, Danny. I love the class. And it's not that there's, and there's not a bunch of 5 stars where, they play zone and man exceptionally well. They're built well. They run fast. It's not that. But there is a flavor in this class for every type of connoisseur of corners. I mean, Danny's talking about like he likes, gritty corners that kind of come up and they want to jam you and be jerks and be tough customers. Jarvis Brownlee, and he got beat plenty. But like I don't know if did you watch Jarvis Brownlee, Danny?
I did, yeah, but he obviously didn't make my.
Yeah, no, I get it. But like that's a guy when you're talking about the Gardner Johnson attitude.
Right.
I was like, sign me up. I would.
Right, but you got to play as well too. I mean, that guy was burned like toast a couple times, but
yes. But I mean, that's where there's depth here. I mean, like we didn't talk about Max Melton, who's the top corner.
That's a guy I like. That's a guy. It was hard for me to keep him off my top 5 because I really like him. But again, I went back to size, and I think you had him as one of your nickel corners, and I think that's an area where he fits in nicely as a nickel corner. He's got that quickness, he's got the speed, the 4.39 speed, the explosiveness in his lower half. I think he's a guy just like his brother last year. I was touting his brother, Bo Melton, as a receiver option for the Bears. He ended up going to the Packers, and lo and behold, now he's going to be a contributing receiver there for Green Bay. But yeah, Max Melton is a kid I really do like. It was hard to keep him out of my top 5, but I just ended up going with 5 because honestly, guys, I don't think if they stay with 4 picks, I don't think the Bears draft neither a corner or a safety. If they trade and they get more picks, then I can see them maybe adding some depth, especially at safety, bringing in a young guy to potentially replace Kevin Byard. I believe Byard has a 1 or 2 year deal. I forgot it was 2-year deal. Okay, so
2 years, but they can get out of it at minimal cost for the second year
because they don't have much depth. I mean, they brought a couple guys in for like probably special teams or some depth, but in terms of a long term replacement there, if you get extra picks and you see a guy falling,
We'll get into safeties here, but I mean, you could definitely bring a guy in, especially contribute right away on special teams. We see guys go down every week, right? So I think with some of the guys brought in, I think Tavares Moore was one of the guys they brought in as a veteran, been around a couple times. Obviously, Elijah Hicks is one of the guys that they drafted in the 7th round that they kind of like and develop, but he's nothing really. When he's had a chance to play, he hasn't really done much to stick out. So I think if you have a chance, if you have extra picks, you get a safety in day 3, I think you can plug one of these guys in and he could potentially be a starter down the road.
Yeah. And I mean, Aldo, just with respect to Kay's question about like below average class, I mean, when you're talking about the board, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if I call it an A+ class, but I love a lot of the players in this class. When we're talking about flavors, you need a man, heavy press corner, big, tall frame dude. You got Nehemiah Pritchett. You have Kalen Carson there. You have guys like Kyrie Jackson and Cam Hart. Those are those big, tall guys. I mean, nobody really talks about him. I understand he had an ugly LSU game playing for Mississippi State, but DeCamerion Richardson is a freak show as far as height and speed. And then you talk about your different schools. If you can play for Ron Roberts defense at Auburn, you can play for me. And that's Pritchett, that's DJ James, that's Jalen Simpson, who's the safety. You're talking about Missouri. Danny loves Rakestraw. I love Chris Abrams-Drain. I mean, that's a player that I'm all aboard with. That a lower rake. He could certainly, I think, is a better nickel maybe, but this is to me a class where as I go down my board and you look at. I mean, we haven't even talked about Renardo Green. I like press corners. I like jerks just like Danny does, guys that'll get in your face and run you up. And that's not necessarily even Renardo Green, but put him on the edge, put him on the boundary, and he just turns the boundary as his best friend and just runs the receiver into it and jostles and fights all up and down the route. And to me, Renardo Green's another player that isn't talked about nearly enough. And obviously what he did to Malik Neighbors, but it's all over the tape, what he did to Jamari Thrash. I mean, this class at corner, there's talent at every level, and it's just your flavor. Pick one, and there's a guy that'll fit your archetype that you're looking for.
Very good. All right, let's talking about corners. Let's go to, safeties. We were talking about earlier. Let's go to Danny's top 5 safeties. And I got to tell you, I saw about 3 or 4 Minnesota games this year and fell in love with Tyler Nubin.
Yeah, this was obviously this was a tough choice between him and Cameron Kitchens, and that's how much I love Cameron Kitchens. But yeah, Newman got the overall because of the size, right? 6'1", 199, 32-inch arms, 5th-year senior, local kid from St. Charles, Illinois, a 4-year starter in Minnesota. He's got experience, 36 career starts, set the school record with 13 career interceptions. First team All Big Ten this past season in 2023. So the things about him is obviously the size, the length. Has that muscularly defined frame, fluid and smooth mover, plays faster than his times, in my opinion. Smooth in his pedal, can change directions, flip his hips, takes solid angles and plays the ball well in the air. Excellent hands and concentration, as confirmed by his 13 career interceptions. And this guy was a captain of the secondary. You saw him lining up guys, helping them get in formations, calling line mates out, teammates out. And this is a guy that also will come down and pack a punch and provide some physicality from that safety position. So those are the positives that I liked about Tyler Nubin. That's why he took the number 1 spot. Some of the things that concern me, some of his negatives are route awareness and passing game concepts tend to kind of be up and down on his film, late to recognize sometimes, which receiver would be leaking into his coverage area. So, those are things that, hopefully over time he can get coached up and coached out of his game. Can get manipulated by the quarterback's eyes and get turned the wrong way. You saw that a couple times on his tape there. Transition downhill can get a little bit too steppy, which allows for a leaked yardage. Can be overzealous in terms of filling the hole and will be unbalanced and won't gather himself in time to stuff the back in the hole there. Shoulder dives at ankles. Although I know that turn drives you crazy. I remember Ed Jackson would do this, and you would just come on the post-game show and yelling. But you see sometimes he's shoulder diving at ankles of running backs, and that again allows for the backs to break the run and get some more yards there. Plays a really deep safety, doesn't allow anything over his head. So I like to see him maybe with that size come up a little more and be a little bit more closer to the line of scrimmage. But again, that's not his call. That's what the defense called for. So I think this guy can do a little more than what we've seen so far in Minnesota. But I like the size. I like the athletic ability. And again, 13 interceptions for his career. I like a guy that can get that ball away from the offense. Moving on to Cameron Kitchens. All right, I saw this guy live at the Senior Bowl, and that's from then I've been like, this guy is going to be a ball player. And it just sometimes when I watch guys, I just have a feeling they're going to be the dudes. And I think Cameron Kitchens gives me that feeling in terms of Again, 4-star high school recruit, who was heavily sought after. Chose Miami over schools like Georgia, LSU, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Florida. Every major school was after this guy. Ended up going to Miami. He led the ACC in interceptions in back-to-back seasons in 2022 and 2023. A first-team All-American in 2022, and is a 2-time All-ACC team member. For me, with him, is the quick feet, fluid hips, and seamless, smooth pedal. You see from the safety there. Good eyes and anticipation. Plays alert, keys route, and he is able to key route concepts unfolding and breaks on the ball. Good ball skills, 11 interceptions in his last 2 seasons over at Miami. Uses his hands well to disrupt the times of routes, the timing of routes, I should say. Zeroes in on the quarterback and anticipates throws, particularly out to the flats. Quick to read keys and react, fills fast and aggressively with bad intentions versus the run. Effective wrapping up and securing the tackle. Comfortable at the line of scrimmage and does not mind contact. Effective slipping blocks and forcing contain as an edge defender. And again, he's a guy that could be interchangeable, whether you want to pull him as free safety, at strong safety. I know we've talked multiple times. The NFL nowadays, you don't have a traditional old school free safety or a box safety as a strong safety. I need a guy that can be interchangeable, a guy that can be physical and be able to secure tackles and be able to be a good solid run defender if you line him up in the box, but also a guy that can drop back in coverage. And if you need him to play that single high safety, have the ability and to read and diagnose and see concepts develop in front of him and be able to go ahead and actually make a play on the football and obviously get those turnovers. So the things that concern me with him, height and time speed for me are frowned upon. But I watching his tape, in fairness, he does, in my opinion, play faster than what he timed at the combine. Could stand to play with better discipline to leverage the field. Can be over aggressive and get sucked in by and fooled by play action. So his eye discipline's got to get better there. Drifts in zones and can be baited to overplay one side versus the other by a quarterback. Again, that's more coverage discipline there. So I think hopefully things that you can kind of go ahead and coach out of him. But the aggressiveness, the dog mentality, the football character he shows on the football field, the leadership. And again, the secure tackler that he is, and then also the ability to take the ball away with the ball production. That's why this guy was very high for me. The size with Nubin it really kind of put him over the top. But if this guy was a couple more inches taller, I think he might have been my top overall safety.
All right, so that's Ketan Oladapo from Oregon State, and now you're moving on to number 4.
No, that was Cameron Kitchens. Now I'm moving on to Ketan Oladapo from Oregon.
My bad. Okay, lost track. There you go. Thanks.
All right, so I'll talk about another guy who's a big safety here, right? So a 3-year starter, 39 career starts, second team all Pac-12. Led the team this past year with 2 interceptions and 8 passes broken up. Talk about ball production, 3 interceptions only, but 23 passes defense and 2 forced fumbles. You put on the tape at Oregon State, and first thing you see is terrific size and length for a safety. Has a sculpted frame, looks every bit the part with the build of a small linebacker. Impactful hitter. This guy's got that knockback body power, can provide an intimidating presence to the back end of the defense. Quick to read and react post snap. Shows instincts and coverage and does not get fooled. Displays good coverage skills. With the foot quickness and hip fluidity to be able to cover with tight ends and receivers from the slot and on the outside seams. Can mirror and stay in phase downfield. Confident, competitive as a run defender. Fills the alley with urgency and packs a punch when he meets a running back. Displays a second gear or a burst to be able to run downfield and catch running backs from behind. Is a secure open field tackler. Will wrap up with physicality. Those are his positives. His negatives for me: tightly wound athlete. Displays some lower body stiffness. A quick change of direction can cause him to flop or miss a tackle. Over aggression can cause him to come in out of control and won't allow him to make himself come to balance in order to be able to look at the running back or maybe even overrun the play there. Lacks a top end speed, which might limit him to schemes that are predominantly a 2 safety scheme, like a cover 2, for example. I'm give him half field reads or half field coverages, I should say. Might not be a single high safety because of that lack of speed, overall top end speed, but definitely a guy at 6'2", 200 plus pounds, gives you some of that physicality and a big imposing size. Really surprised me in terms of how well he could cover and stay in phase downfield with receivers and with tight ends.
some talk about him potentially being a linebacker. Have you heard that?
Well, he's got that body type. He's got that frame that some teams like him as an extra, like a tweener, a hybrid guy that can be, in the box and be a linebacker. But I just think the way he can cover downfield, I watched him versus Oregon, going against their tight end and going against, there was a couple times, he matched up with Franklin in the slot and he was able to keep, and stay in phase with him downfield. So obviously, you guys know Franklin is a second round probably receiver here in this draft. So he's got that ability. That really surprised me again for someone that big with that size.
All right, so that was Ketan Oladapo, and now we move to the kid from Utah, who I like a lot.
Yeah, that's why you're rushing here, because you want me to get to the guy.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. This is your guy. Cole Bishop, 6'2", 206, 3-year starter with Utah. A second team All Pac-12, a team captain. This is a guy you put on the tape, and this guy is all over the football field. That's probably why Aldo loves him. A solid size, athletic ability, quick feet, hip fluidity, moves like a cornerback, terrific lower body explosiveness, a 39-inch vertical, fine eyes, instincts, and anticipation. Good range, 4.45 speed we talked about earlier. Can play as a single high safety, takes good angles and plays the cutback. Plays with urgency and feels fast. Competitive run defender, feels fast, is a solid wrap-up tackler, aims and secures the running back's ankles. Physicality at the line of scrimmage does not bother him at all. Competitive, tough, and as I mentioned earlier, he's a team captain. The negatives for me, short arms. See him, a lot of times get stuck on blocks, unable to, quickly disengage. There are times where runners are able to kind of squirt free away from him. He couldn't secure the tackle, especially if he came in high and aimed towards, either, middle of the waist up high. Could struggle in man coverage, with bigger body tight ends and receivers, especially the ones with the bigger catch radius, downfield. They can maybe muscle them or off physical him for that ball. And then for me, ball production was marginal at best at Utah. So those are some of the negatives from it. But man, you put on the tape, he's a fun guy to watch. I mean, he's literally all over the football field for Utah. Comes down, sets the edge as a run defender, funnel the run back inside to his line mate. So a fun guy to watch on tape, definitely.
Yeah, yes, he is. All right, let's get to your last safety. Adrian Taylor Demerson from Texas Tech.
Right, and we talked about earlier, right? I'm not big into these slight safeties. These guys that don't have the big size, and because again, it's a physical game. A lot of times you're asked to come down and run defense and be physical. But putting on this kid's tape. And again, another one to talk about being all over the football field. Taylor Demerson, I think, is a guy that's got a lot of potential here at the next level. I even thought about maybe lining up as an inside slot corner. That's how good he is in terms of coverage ability. 3-year starter for the Red Raiders, led them interceptions in 3 straight seasons. Is a team captain. His football character is off the chain in terms of how he is in that locker room and on that team. His positives: quick twitch defensive back who displays lightning quick feet, loose hips, stop and start ability, along with good lower body explosiveness. Had a 38-inch vertical and a 10-3 broad jump. Very smooth in transition. Has the movement skills of a nickel cornerback. With the ability to be able to cover receivers in the slot and running backs out of the backfield. Speed to cover from hash to the sidelines. Capable of playing a single high defender. Has that track down speed to be able to catch ball carriers from behind to make up for poor angles that he takes to the ball. Ball skills are on display on his film with 10 career interceptions, 33 passes defensed. And again, we talked about it earlier. High football character, team captain. Some of the negatives for me, undersized for a safety, thin frame, needs to add some more weight there, get stronger. Coverage discipline and awareness can be tested, right? He can get caught flat-footed in coverage and allow a receiver to kind of blow by him. I think he relies a lot on his speed and his burst to be able to kind of make up for that kind of stuff. But in the NFL, it's going to burn you if you keep doing that. Still honing his eyes, when playing the backfield, play action can cause him to go and bite and turn the wrong way. Lacks physicality and plays small in the run game. Lacks that play strength to be able to get down and at times can be taken for a ride by bigger, stronger running backs. Shoulder dives at tailback's feet instead of wrapping up. Those are things that you're gonna have to kind of, if you're gonna play safety at the next level, you're gonna be able to come down and wrap up. So those are the things that do concern me. But again, the speed, the coverage ability, the ball production. He's a guy that I think really has opened up some eyes. Another one that's kind of taken off here, the postseason here, and has really made a name for himself. So I think he could go in that second, third round range, depending on what type of team you are and what type of defensive backs you like. But he's a guy, again, if you're gonna knock me for not omitting some guys with slight frames, he's a guy that I tried to omit, but I just, his playmaking ability and his coverage skills, I just had to put him on. You're on mute, Aldo.
That was such a nice transition to. That was Taylor Demerson from Texas Tech that Danny has fifth on his top DB fits for the Chicago Bears. Jordan, what are your thoughts on these five guys?
So you're telling me Danny has a type? No, I get it.
I
like
big backs and you cannot lie. I like big safeties and I cannot lie.
Yeah, well, and Danny, we share a lot of the same feelings about that. I like big safeties too. There's a reason why Cooper DeJean and Jaden Hicks are at the top of my board, because they're big thumping safeties. But you really hit kind of two guys, and we could talk about them all. But you hit two guys that I think are. It's funny because I've looked at them and said. And I know we're not supposed to talk Vikings here, but one of my favorite players in the league is Harrison Smith, and he's getting up there in age for the Vikings. He's been a great player, former Golden Domer, and he's always had a unique skill set. It's funny because I think that the Vikings are in need of a guy. They tried drafting Lewis Cine, it hasn't worked out. A guy that can play that versatile role of a Harrison Smith, and to me, Keaton Oladapo and Cole Bishop are guys that remind me of that same kind of skill set. Certainly, Harrison Smith has gone on to be a fantastic player, kind of an NFL legend, if you will. And so I'm not saying these guys will get there, but I love the skill set that Oladapo brings. Certainly, he's a big thumper. I think he needs to kind of play more towards the box. A guy that reminds me of what Harrison Smith has played as now with Brian Flores, whereas Cole Bishop kind of reminds me of that old Mike Zimmer version of Harrison Smith. That my only issue with Bishop is I certainly think football character's high. As athletic as he was, and he was all over the field, as you said, I just didn't love that I didn't see him get enough hands on footballs, which was a problem. And then Oladapo, I think, is just all over the field, and I think it was J2K saying, like, just put him down in a position and let him just rock people in the box, and that's what I'd like to see him do. But he's a freak show in his own right. Taylor Demerson's an interesting one. I love the range, love the skill, but I think you really hit it on the head there, that he trusts his athleticism to bail him out, which I get it. I mean, he's a freak athlete, but that is going to burn you, and he is a little, I should find a better word than this, but there's a couple guys in this way, but I called him like a lamb killer, which is that when he's going up against the smaller, easier players, he'll slaughter him. I mean, it's no problem. Like he'll drop his shoulder and be the biggest thump. And that was Jarvis Bradley the same way. Oh, yeah, when you can get a lick on somebody that's not looking sucker punch him, you'll get up and think that you're the biggest man in the world. But when it comes down to actually fitting the run, that's not your game, and you kind of just wrestle with them and hope for teammates to come do the bulk of the work for you and wrapping them up. But as far as, just being a ball hawk, it's hard to deny his skill set. With respect to Cam Kinchens, Cam Kinchens is a guy that I'd be willing to bet on. As mentioning earlier, like I wouldn't bet on Tavondre Sweat. Cam Kinchens is a guy that I'd be willing to bet on because, it's well known that like his pick numbers, his ball production at Miami rivals, two of the best Miami safeties in Ed Reed and Sean Taylor. So just on that premise alone, I'd be willing to take a bet on the guy. But right now, my biggest concern with him is I don't think he's an elite athlete, which is fine. He's a good enough, and the ball production says he can get by with that athleticism or lack thereof. But right now, I really want to see his eyes and his discipline, seeing what's ahead of him develop and not get pulled down so much. I mean, Drake May, quarterback one, shredded Cam Kinchens a couple times in their game this year because Cam Kinchens found a way to kind of come up on those play actions. And, he's a guy that has enough ability to play free safety and be a ball hawk, but those eyes betray him right now, and that worries me about it. But like I said, if we're talking about willing to bet on a guy, yeah, I'll bet on that production. I'll bet on that size. I'll bet on that dog, that DAWG. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's how we see it. And then forgive me, Aldo, the first safety was
Newman.
Newman. Yeah, I mean, and that's where, like I said, we're talking about all these prospects. Tyler Newman, I love Tyler Newman. It's how do you not love that guy? I mean, there's not a lot of redeeming qualities about PJ Fleck's Minnesota Gophers, but Newman is one of those guys. I don't think that he has necessarily – what's interesting about Newman is I don't think he's exceptional in any one department, but he's like a B plus A minus in every single skill set that you're looking for in a safety. And because of that, I wouldn't necessarily put him at a single high. I don't think he has the range for it. I wouldn't necessarily put him at strong safety because I don't think he's got that Oladapo or that Jaden Hicks thumper in him. But you can put him at either. He's got enough range to play free. He's got enough willingness to fit the run to play strong. And he's got enough instincts and skill set to clearly study the opponent. And again, talking about that discipline to find his way to the football. And, again, a leader with Minnesota, like it's hard to not like that guy as a top safety. I think I had him in the second round just behind Jaden Hicks. So, it's hard to not like these safeties.
A couple of thoughts here. First of all, J2K wanted to know your guys' thoughts on Kalen Bullock.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, Kalen Bullock's an interesting one. A young player, impressionable. I think that he's got room for development. If there's a guy that I have to compare to Eddie Jackson in this class, it is Kalen Bullock. He's very thin. I think that he potentially could be a cornerback, similar to how Eddie was thought to potentially be a quarterback. So I think that Bullock has the ability. He's found his way to the football. He's a young player at USC. He's played since he got there. He's a local kid to me in California, not of Pasadena, so I'm familiar with his game. But to me, he's another one. I wouldn't even, and to the point, Aldo, of like lamb killers. I'm talking about these guys that feast on Lester. He doesn't feast on anybody. He does not find a way to wrap up. The run fits and run support is a real problem. But if you're just willing to like let him roam around and try to be that, I think of Eddie Jackson when he really made his heyday. It was playing that field side free safety in the quarters Fangio defense, where quarterbacks they'd underestimate his range and his ability to get over in time. And that's kind of what Kalen Bullock can do. Is if you can find a bunch of other people to fit the run, 10 other guys, then you can afford to let a Kalen Bullock sit back there and just dart and he'll just sit on top of the perch, even in single high, and just pick off balls. But the problem, and this is a real fundamental thing for me, and this is why Danny and I see safeties the same way, is, and I know some people don't see this, but when you come up in pop order football, the first thing they teach you is to tackle. That's a fundamental part of the game. And when you're safety, you are the last line of defense. That's so as much as you want to tell me that Kalen Bullock will just, don't worry, he'll just find a way to get to the football and we won't have to rely on him, there will come a time when he is the last possible defender to stop a runner. And that's when, he has to make a business decision. And I'm really worried about his ability to do that.
Yeah, that's the thing about Bullock is I love the coverage ability. I love the ability, to make the play in a football, but I just couldn't do it to Aldo. Aldo lived all those years of Eddie Jackson. I couldn't have him watch Kalen Bullock play safety for the Bears. I think he might just actually break his TV, have a heart attack, do something crazy, but I just couldn't do him. So yeah, Bullock is a guy that's talented in terms of coverage, but yeah, in run defense, again, just like Jordan said, if you're a safety, you're the last line defense, possibly, you got to be able to tackle.
Yeah, exactly. Bellissimo and J2K thought that Javon Bullard might have been slighted by, particularly Danny, with his top 5. Thoughts?
Yeah, for me, he's a nickel player. He's a nickel, whether it's a nickel safety or a nickel corner. He's not a guy that I see as a down and down out starter at safety. Talented kid, shows the quickness, shows some good route recognition and all that stuff. But I couldn't see him as a starter in this league. I think he's a guy that's he's going to find a role, but it's going to be on nickel defense or dime nickel, whatever you're going to call it.
Yeah, although, to me, I like Javon Bullard, but I understand Danny's point to kind of put him closer to the line of scrimmage where he can use some of that quick short area quickness to kind of survive. And I understand it too, because to me, where Bullard really survives, and this is where I probably differ from Danny just a bit, because I think he can play safety. But again, if we're talking about maximizing a player, not only is he better in short areas, but the reason why I think he can survive at deep safety is, and I'm not talking single high, but I'm just talking about playing split field, is because his instincts are good enough to make sure that he's not out of position. But I understand when you're talking about a height, weight, speed league, Bullard doesn't bring those to the table. But again, we're talking about like taking bets. Kirby Smart is incredibly enthusiastic and complimentary of Bullard's skill. And if you can play for that Kirby Smart defense, it's like saying you can play for a Saban defense. I think that he had an exceptional year. And honestly was the best DB at, again, when you're talking about Lassiter, you're talking about Tyke Smith, you're talking about, I'm forgetting who the other safety is off the top of my head. Is it Key that replaced? No, that was Alabama that replaced Helen. Yeah, but to me, Bullard is that dude that, to me, I think he can play safety, but I'm with Danny. If you really want to maximize him, put him close to the line, let him use that short area quickness, his instincts, and let him kind of muck up closer to the line in the box.
Very good. Guys, I want to apologize to everyone and you two guys for the technical problems at the start of the show. It's now 10:30. We're a little over the 2 hour mark. So we're going to call it quits. But before we do that, I want to let everyone know that one of the reasons I was super excited about this show today is because these two gentlemen, Jordan and Danny, and myself, are going to host day 2 of our live draft coverage. I'll be doing what I did here today, messing things up, and these guys will make me look good with their top-notch analysis. Really looking forward to that next Friday. On Thursday for round 1, it'll be John Buffone, Danny Shimon, and myself, a slimmed-down pairing of stuff. And then on day 3, it's kind of a potpourri. The bar room is open for anyone to stop in and share their thoughts. So if you are interested in joining us on day 3, please reach out to me. You know how to do it on Barroom Network. You can reach out to Danny and Jordan too at Jordan T. Silveira, and that last name is spelled Silveira. And Danny is on Twitter at D Shimon. That's D SHIMON 56. I got the audio podcast guys in mind when I'm spelling those out. Final words, Jordan?
Aldo, Danny, always a great time. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you all to give me the opportunity to kind of share the big board for the first time. If anybody's looking for kind of the holistic view, I'm trying to find a way to, as Aldo had to kind of split it up. It's really hard to capture the entire board for offense and defense. So I'm working on that, but that'll be up on Twitter as soon as I can get it up with a breakdown on each position. And so if you're looking to interact further, ask questions, you're always welcome to reach me again at Jordan T. Silveira on X or Twitter. And thank again, Danny, excellent work on the analysis. Always a fun time to talk prospects with you, and no better place to do it than the Barroom Network. Thank you, Aldo. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jordan. Obviously, always bring it every time. Knowledge, prepared, all that stuff. We do appreciate when you join us, and we'll have fun on Friday. Bring down some of these prospects. So, but yeah, I mean, in terms of for me, like, a week from tomorrow, guys. It all starts tomorrow. I mean, a week from tomorrow, and then we'll finally get the draft going. Next week's show I think it's gonna be fun as well, because I've got a bunch of names that you guys have sent into Aldo in terms of you guys want me to scout. We're gonna go through that list. If you have some more names you want to go ahead and just forward to Aldo there via Twitter or however you want to reach him. I'm going to go ahead and go through the list of the names that you guys wanted. You guys want me to break down. So as long as I get tape on them, I can watch them, and I'll give you some scouting reports on those guys next week. So next week's show should be fun as well.
Indeed. And one other thing that I want you guys to think about, I got a message from Greg, and he told me that he spoke with someone. I'm not going to mention that person's name, but it is a highly visible draft evaluator, player evaluator for NFL drafts on one of the major sports stations, who said that he is hearing that the Chicago Bears are definitely want out of number 9. Now, take that with a grain of salt. And I looked at this guy's mock draft. He still had the Bears picking at the number 9 spot, so I don't know. But one of the things I'd love for you guys to think about is, if the Bears do trade down, maybe the next time we all get together, I don't know, Jordan, if you're going to have a Barfly tailgate show on Sunday, but that would be, I think, a great topic for you guys to talk about and Danny to talk about next week. And if we have to get the two of you guys together to have a good debate on what that trade down could look like and who the Bears could potentially be targeting with a mid or late first rounder, or, heaven forbid, moving totally out of the first round. I'm not for that at all. In fact, one of the ideas that was pitched to me is the Buffalo Bills with the 28th pick that they have. That might be too low. So there's a lot to talk about here.
I've heard that as well. I've heard Buffalo as well.
Yeah. So
Buffalo's coming up, and they're giving a lot to go get Roma Dunze or one of these 3 receivers to replace Stephon Diggs. So 28, and I wrote down all the charts in terms of the picks here. Buffalo's got 28, 60, and 128 in the first 3 rounds. Mm-hmm. So if you're talking about 28, pick 160, pick 60, maybe something else in the later on, and also you got to have to get up next year's first round pick as well. So and Buffalo is willing to do that, to go up in the top 10 to get a receiver. So that's something to keep an eye on. I think that the team for me that keep an eye on, and maybe we'll discuss this some other time, is the Saints. Saints need an offensive tackle, and I don't think they can sit there. Both their tackles
Their left tackle, Trevor Penning, has been a bust so far. The right tackle, Ramczyk, is out now. They're not sure if he's going to be able to play this year. So they need right tackles or offensive tackles. And I think they want to try and get up ahead of the Jets and get their pick of their guy. So that's another team. The Saints have picks 14 and 45. If you're the Bears, you go down to 14, you get a 45, which is the second round pick, and maybe some more stuff, whatever it is, filler is. But you get 14, you're in the range for a edge guy, right? Or you're in the range for an interior guy. You're in the range for maybe even offensive lineman. You're in a range there. You maybe have you're another receiver there that they might like it just as much. So, but it gives you that second round pick that we've been trying to get back here since they traded it away. So those are two teams just to kind of keep an eye on.
Jordan, any quick thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, the one we'll see how likely it is because I don't think Ballard likes to part with his picks. But obviously, Ballard has connections to Ryan Poles. He's got connections to the Bears, and I just think it's a unique spot where you're moving back, I think, to 15. And what that allows him to do is it allows him to get up for one of two things, which is one, if you want to potentially bolster that receiving core with the Brock Bowers for Anthony Richardson, you can beat the Jets to maybe Aaron Rodgers demanding he gets another weapon opposite Garrett Wilson. But also, alternatively, there's you get your pick of the corners. I think that, to be fair, the Colts could sit and probably get the corner of their choice, but if they're really hot on because we talked about corners, you have your flavors of corners in this draft. If they really feel like this corner is the one we want, this is the guy that we fit, and Ballard likes athletes, I think that, there's a situation where Quinyon Mitchell, he likes big, strong, fast, freaky guys. You're playing a tough hand thinking that Quinyon Mitchell is going to fall to you at 15. So I could see a situation where just because of the relationship there with Ryan Poles, you're able to say, Ryan Poles at 15, you're probably going to get, Jared Verse, the edge that you're looking for, or, Olu Fashanu if he's there, or it gives, I can flip you an additional pick. And you're also probably not going to fleece me or overcharge me because of the relationship we have going back to Kansas City. And I'm not coming up to steal one of your guys. I'm going to go take a corner or a tight end, something that you don't totally need. And there's enough reason there. It's not divisional. It's opposite conference. Like there's ways that I can see something like that fitting.
The only thing real quick on that is Ballard loves corners, and even though he'll love Quinyon Mitchell, he can get a corner in the second and third round. He's not going to jump up for a corner. I think what he would do is Brock Bowers is a possibility. He's going to try and fortify and give his young quarterback some weapons, and Bowers could be an option there if he wants to jump ahead of the Jets. That's a good call there, Jordan. Also, might want to get a receiver as well, to try and give him another weapon there too. So I think if that trade is done with the Colts, it would be for a offensive player as opposed to a Quinyon Mitchell.
And the last one I'd just say quickly, Aldo, is that I don't, it's tough to imagine the 49ers would do anything rash, but they desperately need tackle plans beyond Colton McKivitz and Trent Williams. And there'll be some interesting options there in the 20s for the 49ers, but moving up, I know that's a far back move for the Bears, but John Lynch has shown an ability to flip a ton of picks to move up. Could Ryan Poles find a way to go, hey, I need a ton for you to move up this way? But the Niners could find themselves in a position where they can get one of the top tackles in this class in a trade up. And I even, the last one is like the Rams. Sean McVay, they don't love their first round picks, and Sean McVay, I don't think he could help himself if he could find a way to getting a receiver or a tight end or something for that offense. And so I could see a scenario where they're willing to just kind of push it all forward because they don't know how to stop and lay off the gas pedal in LA.
One minor note just on the Rams. I was told that Byron Murphy's going in the top 10. So
yeah, they need an Aaron Donald replacement.
Aaron Donald retired, so I don't know if that's talking about that, but Byron Murphy's going in the top 10, I heard.
Yeah, well, I've seen Byron Murphy mocked to the Chicago Bears after they've traded down 2 or 3 slots. So a lot of possibilities out there, and I just can't wait to the next time the three of us get together to talk ball, and I could listen to you guys talk. It's like, buying a Lindy's article. You guys are so well prepared in talking about the weaknesses and strengths and backgrounds on these players. It's really a blast. You guys did a great job tonight. Really appreciate it. Our next football show is Friday. It is the Willis Twin Towers on Friday. They'll be talking about their thoughts on the NFL draft. And let's see, tomorrow I think Crosstown Crosstalk with Vinny Parisi will be on. want to thank everyone that joined us in the live room. Hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube. If you're catching the audio podcast, please leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it. All right, fellas, thank you again very much, and goodbye, everyone in the chat room.